Well, welcome to the DBE Stakeholder Advisory Committee. You should have received the agenda a few days ago. I believe this is the first meeting under our new meeting schedule. Prior, we had been meeting every other Thursday. Now we're moving to every month. So our next meeting will be May 26th, Thursday, May 26th. As I mentioned,
David, that's not correct. So
it's not correct.
Yeah, we're meeting every other month, so we'll be. I'll actually talk about that at the end.
Okay, I apologize for the confusion. Every other month it is then.
Yes, it's every other month. Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. And Christina sent out the meeting agenda and the minutes from the meeting on March 24th, as well as the minutes from the Labor Committee and Business Committee breakout sessions. I would encourage you to review those. And if there are any comments, please get those back to us and we'll make any changes. In terms of the agenda this morning, the first item will be the DB utilization update provided by Maria and Madalena. Next, we'll have a DBE website update provided by Madalena. And then we'll go into our breakout sessions and we'll meet there for about an hour and 5 minutes. There was some question, are we going to have an update from the Southeast region on some of the projects? I noticed there was some email traffic about that, but I'm not sure if Bob is on or if his team's prepared to talk about some of those projects. Not on the agenda, but
yeah, we're not going to have time to do that. We really want to focus on those work plans since we are not meeting next month. So, and before we get into moving through the agenda, I just want to, if we can just check in to see if there's any new people that have joined us who haven't been at these meetings, because we do open these up to the public. So if there's anybody new with us, feel free to introduce yourself.
My hand. Let's see.
And I think I see Supervisor Willie Johnson. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm Willie Johnson, Jr., County Supervisor. On this particular Thursday, I'm free, as opposed to Cheryl Wankowski sitting in for me. So we just got elected. We have not had our committee assignments, and so we have not had our meetings, and therefore we have not had a board meeting. So this Thursday I'm free, and I'm glad to join you to see what I can learn at this particular time. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Mr. Johnson. Appreciate it. Any other folks that are new to the call?
That would be me, Meenal Ham, M-Squared Engineering.
Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Any other folks that are new to the call? Okay. With that, I think we can turn to agenda item number 2. Maria and Madalena, do you want to take that away?
Yes, thank you. Are you here, Maria?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Will you share that attainment report? And I will let you just take it away. And if there are any questions, I can answer those with you.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Okay, just a reminder, and for those that are not familiar with this report, we have the overall annual goal of 12.41%. We are hoping we have a conscious 8.14 and neutral 4.27. So here on my report, on this report, the attainment report, we have this value, the 800.3 million is the estimate of contribution, construction for the 22 federal fiscal year. And so far up to March, as we can see here, this report, everything is up to March. We already have 500.2 millions of dollars that have federal funds. With that in mind, I will mention here also, we combine that values were just for construction. And here we have the information about the consultant service. And to clarify, consultant service include all the professional service on construction and designs. All the construction management and design are included on this consultant service. So we have on total estimate for the federal fiscal year 22, 128.6 million for up to March. And these 75.4 millions are just the contract with federal funds. And here we have this is the value for a consultant that we have so far for the DBE is 17.5 millions. So from there, we put together the construction. For construction, we have been on consultant, we have been only using everything of a neutral values so far. And because before we didn't have like a goal set for the consultant service. But in construction, we do have the consultant service. So we will see here the values that are for assigned values on our contracts. And we have the total DVE assigned values or conscious is this 50 millions. But also we have, besides those, we have also during the bid letting, we have these additional commitment, which are the neutral values for us of 3 million. And also we have been following all the contracts that are under construction and verifying with payments and all the addition and also the reductions. We have been tracking all of those, and we have here this value, the 9.5 millions are the additional, taking obviously away the reduction. So this value is the same value that we have here, which are all the additions, all the modification after contract execution. So here is the summary. Here we have the combined amounts for construction and consulting. This, as I mentioned, is the consulting only, and this one is construction, including both values, conscious and neutral, and this is the big total. What does that mean for us is out of the 8.14 that we were expecting for conscious, we already reached 8.43, and for the 4.7 neutral that we were expecting, we already reached 5.05%. So the overall federal funds is range up to March is 13.48% out of the 12.41%. So those are really good news for us. And this is up to March. So we are expecting better values now when construction starts. So I don't know if you have any question, any additional question, or if Magdalena have anything that she wants to add, or somebody else, I'm sorry.
Sure, and maybe I can give a little bit deeper dive here. And thanks for pointing out, Maria, that some people are probably not familiar with this report. So, so I want to give a little bit more context. If you can go to the front of this, yeah, to column B or something. Okay, great, thanks. So the way that we track and report on our DBE goal is is based on the federal funds that we receive. So you will always see on this report what we are estimating we will have in federal funds for construction. So that's that 834 million there. So far through the March letting for construction, we've had 525 million in federal funding. We expect it to stay stable, and our federal colleagues would like that too. There are some times when the state and federal percentages have to change, but we know that they won't dip below the amount that we've set a goal, because we don't exceed the federal dollars on a project with our DBE goal. It is fine if DB achievement would go beyond a goal, and that's absolutely fine, but we just do not assign that goal beyond federal dollars. And so when we talk about the conscious amount, that is a goal assignment. So we are attempting purposefully to get DB achievement, and a contractor must strive to meet that goal or demonstrate good faith effort otherwise, but we're not able to meet the goal. And the neutral part, which is really how we want to get the majority of our achievement here, is through the contractor and prime consultants using DBEs when there is no goal at all. And so we see that achievement in consulting, where that 17.5 million is coming, almost completely from non-DBE goals. So neutral participation is what's happening here. We see much more priming and consulting, so that are DBEs. But there's also a lot of subcontractor, subconsultant use there as well. So it's neutral, but we do look for places to set goals, and we have set a couple this year. But for about the past 4 years, there hadn't been goals set because this area does very well without a goal. And the regulation tells us we want to get to a place where DBEs are being used without goals or very minimum goals, because that is demonstrating health of the program, meeting a main objective of leveling the playing field, because DBEs are being used because they're simply businesses that contribute to industry, and contractors and consultants want to work with them. So I hope that helps with that context there. And then we always will adjust as a project is maybe rejected for another reason. Bureau of Project Development may remove a project. The project can't move forward for one reason or another. So when that happens, then we adjust this report to take out any of the commitment that we previously had recorded. So as we move along, if you end up with a copy of this report, and then you'll see an adjustment, and it's like, well, oh my gosh, before there were 35 projects in October, and or not October, but say it was November, and now there's 33, you would know why that happens. And hopefully the explanation of how we've combined the attainment as well was helpful to you. We are always showing there in column N 18, maybe, that $75 million. That is the amount of federal funds used thus far in the consultant services side, and they're estimating 128,000, that next row, that would be total federal funds on the consultant side for this federal fiscal year. Okay, so did we have any questions?
Okay, any questions for Maria or Madalena?
I'm not
Okay,
seeing
good.
any hands. So
Okay, neither am I. All right. So I guess we can move to the next agenda item, number 3. Madalena, you want to provide an update on the website?
Well, first I want to actually give a brief update on our 3 projects in the Southeast region that we have been tracking for the last year or so. There is, sorry, I'm not sure why that's popping up. So there is a slight increase here. Well, that doesn't look so great, does it? I promise you we did have participation. Well, let me try one more time to get it to open, and if not, then maybe I'll hop along. What I do want to tell you about the projects in the Southeast, I'll stop sharing that. that we were tracking. So that's Highway 20, Highway 50, and the Zoo North Leg. There has been a bit of increased DBE participation, but we're just getting now into the construction season again. So we will expect to see that growing. In the analysis that I did that I wanted to share with you, we did see a little bit of a bump with Hispanic female-owned firms, and I looked through what those contracts were, and it's a nice mix of trucking, supplies, and there was one other area I wanted to point out. We also had Asian Pacific American female participation was increased. So those are things I'll report on more. The overall percentage increase on those projects was less than 1%. So I'm not feeling terrible that I can't give you an update, that you can look at those graphs, because I think at our next meeting a month from now, month and a half, or skip a month, we will have more to report on those. One significant thing I can say though is that the one project of those of 2050 and Zoo North Leg that had come in as an original good faith effort request was the Zoo North Leg. There had been a 15% goal on that project, and it came in at 13.35, which at that point was around $21 million in DBE commitments. It is over 24 million in DBE commitments right now and sits right at about 15.1%. So we know that's going to continue to go up as this project goes another couple of years. So just making sure that I got that in there, because that is a big project with definite important DBE participation. Okay, so I'll move on
Madalena,
to.
before you move on to the website, some of the folks on this call may not have the background here. I know you're talking specifically about projects in the Southeast region, but could you just kind of share as a whole, like the demographics as far as which, when we're looking at racial and ethnic minorities, even gender related to like some of the groups that have the lower participation? I know, yeah, just kind of in general. So that would be statewide. So
Sure.
I think that would be helpful for this group to at least have that background.
Okay, so if we're not, and it's unfortunate I cannot get that slide to open because, well, you know what? Let me try a different one, because I have that slide in another presentation, and I can show you demographics pretty quickly here. Okay. So when we look at how we have been trending for, say, about the past 10 years, we've had roughly 60% of our demographic commitments be made to non-minority women-owned firms. There are a few non-minority male-owned firms, but not significant in that statistical grouping there. That puts everyone else around 40%. But where we've seen a change is within the demographics within that 40%. So for instance, Hispanic female-owned companies have seen a large spike in participation. Native American-owned male companies, we've seen growth. Recently, we've been seeing more commitments to Asian Pacific American female-owned firms. So, it fluctuates over the years depending on what firms are in our pool. So we may have, right now the Asian Pacific American female is a fabricator, and so can go in and actually do installation. So it's beyond just supplying. So she ends up being able to be a big contributor. But if she ends up bigger then the limits allow for her to continue engaging in DBE certification, then that would create a gap. So we're always trying to look to the areas that we know we have strength right now, but the point of the program is to help DBEs, or at least one major objective here is to help a DBE get to a place where they don't need the program anymore. They're big enough, they leave the program and have success without the certification. So we need to continue to be paying attention to who's getting near there and who may be moving on so that we continue to be able to address the needs within industry and sort of trying to back up whomever is moving along. So I'm sorry that I can't share that slide right now. I can try to get it up a little bit more in the next session and maybe I'll be able to share it at the end. Does that get
Sounds
it what
good.
you were looking
Otherwise,
for?
yeah, otherwise we can also send it out to the group too, because you have some, I think, some good visuals, some graphs that can show like some of the, and again, I think it would be helpful for the group to see within that racial ethnic group, you know, which ones have been doing fairly well, and the ones that kind of are still, you know, like you mentioned, the Asian American Pacific is a much
Right.
lower participation. So
Yeah. Okay, great. I will do that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sure. Okay, so if there are no questions on that update, then I'm going to go to the website and show you some of our updates. Hopefully it's sharing. Okay. So within the main WisDOT website, so wisconsindot.gov, are several pages related to the DBE program. I often point people to this contracting with a DBE page first because you will find the majority of the information that you need here as a certified DBE or as a prime contractor looking to work with DBEs. In this area, we have bid lettings and solicitation information. So there's tips in here. There's information on bid letting updates. There's links to solicitation pages and information for consultants. ASP3 is a special provision that contains the guidelines for the DBE program that is attached to all contracts that have a DBE goal. And so you will have information in there on what the requirements are for the program and any changes we might make. Good faith effort, as I mentioned, is required from all contractors when a project has a DBE goal, and we are making sure that either the goal is met or they have been working hard to reach out to DBEs and get that commitment going, if not for this project, for the future. And we also work with DBEs on how to engage with primes. We have an archive here of our updates, and then there's a monthly menu of various questions we receive from contractors. There is our link to access the DBE UCP directory. The UCP is the Unified Certification Program. So you will see all firms in the directory that are certified in the state by WisDOT, Milwaukee County, Dane County, or the City of Madison. We work together as partners. And we have an interactive map as well, which I'll show you in a minute, but I want to focus really on the updates that we've made to the support services pages. This menu here is standard on all the DBE pages, so you can always get to support services from here. There are 3 areas within that we are continuing to add information to, but we want to make sure that DBEs do know that we offer these types of resources and services. Business plan development, legal help in terms of helping you review a contract, perhaps, estimating and bidding help. So there's all types of help that we'd like to make sure DBs know we have that support business development, but also help in navigating the type of work that we have here at WisDOT. In the business growth and development area, first, we're always focusing on our capacity building assessment. This is a document that we require DBEs to complete when they are requesting services so that we can get a gauge on where they're at with their business right now. It contains some financial information. It also asks them a lot of questions that will help us figure out how to line up the resources that they may need with what we have and with what we can do with our partners. Mentor Protege program, many of you have heard me talk about frequently. We do now have the consultant piece back online. Of our 9 mentor protege pairs on the construction side who are about to complete their second year. I think there are 3 or 4 who will continue, and we have 5 new potential pairs meeting next week and in the following week. Brochure here for information on that. Our workshop information is listed here right now without links to the videos, but we do have a YouTube page now, and we're just waiting for those videos to all get approved there, and then there will be links here to those workshops. Loan mobilization guarantee, here's information on how a DBE could potentially qualify for WisDOT to guarantee a loan, and as Roz rightly points out when we bring this up, WisDOT does not give loans, but we can do a guarantee. And through our partners at the American Indian Chamber and First American Capital Corporation, we are able to guarantee loans in certain instances. So that is an important resource that just came back online. Please check that out. And then we have links here to partners in the community and other agencies that could be helpful to DBEs. And as we build this out more, we'll also be able to include some contact information directly to someone at these organizations and some more descriptions. So that's that business growth and development piece. And then finally, skill development resources here. We're referring people to the Highway Technician Certification Program, which could be applicable depending on where you're at. The TRANS program is WisDOT's program for supporting training of new laborers into the workforce. And of course, our workshops always offer that technical support too. So you'll see those links here. And we will also be clarifying which of those particular workshops are catered towards what type of work someone may be interested in. We have both consulting and construction geared training sessions. Okay, so calendar, I want to just call out to let you know we are working with our internal IT department to get a calendar going that will be interactive, and you will be able to go right into the calendar, see our events, and save them to your calendar. Right now we have announcements here, but it's really not giving you any idea of the full extent of what's happening. So we're wanting to make sure that you can see that here in one place, and that would include information from the compliance team as well. Okay, so please go check out this information and pass along the resource. And I quickly want to show you the DBE directory map. What I want you to know about this is that we have the DBEs in each of the regions, and even if you zoom out further, you would see that anywhere that our DBEs are located, if they're certified in our state, you'll see them on this map. This can be helpful to contractors or consultants who can zoom into a particular area and see which DBEs are there. You can also type in into the search a DBE's name or a work type. And then you'll see in the back here, all these kind of squiggly lines. That's the 6-year construction map. And that's a layer as well that could be turned on or off. We have it on right now for 6 years. You turn it off if you'd like to see a less busy view. But if you wanted to go into a certain spot and you're wondering what's going to go on here, and let me get down a little bit. My computer has a little bit of a delay in loading here. So you can see this large concentration here of DBEs. You could look at a particular project over here and then go, okay, so who could I rely on here to help me out? And in here, this is showing 1 of 6 in this little square. And so I can see exactly which DBEs are right there. So This is a good tool. I won't go on too much further because I want to respect our time here, but just wanted to make sure that you are aware of this tool. And there are also links here that go back to the directory itself, which is an Excel spreadsheet at this point that you can also sort when looking for where DBEs are located, which counties or which regions we know that DBEs have worked in previously on WisDOT jobs, and of course work types and contact information. Okay, so with that, I'll stop sharing and see if you have any questions for me. Not seeing any in the chat. Don't see any hands, so thank you for your time. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll keep updating this group too as we continue to update the resources on that website.
Great, thank you, Madalena. We're at the point in the agenda now to go into our breakout groups. You'll be automatically sent to your respective breakout sessions. And then we'll regroup at about 11:45 for a closing that Leah will provide. I will be leaving the call at 11:30, just as a reminder, Leah. So, okay. I think we're ready to move to our groups then.
The reason that I wanted to work on her document because I don't know where she left off, and I actually just pulled up her document. But anyway, the main thing is the first goal that we need to go to is the enhanced contractor. But I want to set the context before we get into that document.
Perfect. Okay, great. We'll be able to do that then. Great.
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, thank you all for joining us one more time. Last month we had a conversation about goals, objectives, and strategies and DBE enhancement, and we made great progress. We got down to goal number 5, in our work, and so we have a couple of more goals to pick on today. So we'd like to pick up where we left off, and in that conversation, but then. Towards the end, I'd like to offer you an opportunity to talk to us about what we might have missed, and so we'll take it from there. And so the goal that we want to start with is the enhanced contractor and DBE relations. So, and on the document that I'm working off, that was goal number 5, but on probably the document that I sent to you, it might be goal number 3.
Showing is
Yeah. Goal number 2. All right. So one of the things is that came up, during some of our earlier conversations, is that we need to kind of create a procedure for establishing career communication between the primes and the DBEs. Some of the in the conversation, some of the DBEs mentioned that they were listed, as working with a prime, and that they didn't know that they were listed. And so maybe we can have some more conversation about that. How can we make sure that there's good communication between primes and DBEs? And so let's start there. And maybe if you're on, if that was your experience, and you're on, maybe you can start the conversation, but we don't have to be limited to just that one particular instance. So how can we improve those relationships? It could be between prime consultants and prime contractors and DBEs. I can't see all who's on, but it looks like there's about a bunch of you on here. So is that a problem? Are communications good, or is that a problem?
Hi, Ruben. This is Lamont. I'll speak to this. It's good to see you, Supervisor Johnson, on this call as well. Good morning. It's valid. It's valid. We have firms that reach out to us that say we provided quotes to a prime that was looking to help me participation on a project. And we never heard back. We don't know if they won the project. We've had firms call and say that they were included in the project, but they had no idea that the firm was utilizing their information to help meet participation. So it definitely exists, and we are aware of it and trying to figure out what the remedy will be to address that. we're having those discussions now. It could be something as simple as when a project is an intent to award, that we notify, or it's awarded, that we notify all of the subcontractors that were included in that proposal to let them know, what's going on. Again, that might be the simple fix, but the problem, it is a problem. I'm not saying it's a rampant problem, but it is a problem.
Okay, so how do you handle it? Because, I mean, you manage the DBE program in the county of Lamont. So
Yep.
when that happens, how do you handle it?
When that happens, we haven't run into an instance where the winning bid, the firm that happened to.
Okay,
So we've been blessed in that aspect. But that doesn't mean that it's not around the corner about to knock out our door when is awarded, and that is the issue. So I can say we've definitely been blessed in that aspect. But should something like that happen, then we have to make sure we take the proper steps to address it. And I'm not sure if we necessarily have the well, in the DBE program, I think we have the necessary steps. I'm thinking more of our local program when that happens, if we have the proper ammunition to address that, should that happen. But I think with the DBE program, I think it pretty much will guide us as to how to deal or address firms that utilizes DBE firms in not the proper way when it comes to responding to our solicitations or the opportunities that we have.
yeah, and I'm wondering, is that because some of these primes might have relationships with the DBE and they just are comfortable, listing them as a DBE because they've used them before and they just didn't communicate back to the DBE that we're using you on this project, you know?
That could be, but the forms that we use for our DBE commitment to participation, that form must be signed by the prime and the subcontractor. So if the subcontractor is not signing that form affirming their participation on this project, that's a huge red flag.
Okay. And so Madalena, I'm sure that on the DOT side, we may have that same type of form that the DB has to acknowledge that they signed on with a commitment.
That's right. It's required. And this is sort of a new problem for WisDOT because once we aligned with the regulation and we required that all primes submit all DBE documentation with their bid, it meant that the DBEs don't know when they're actually being put on a project. So
Right.
previously, they would know because we're only getting information from the little bidder. So then the little bidder is going to reach out to the DBE and say, hey, I got the job. I need your attachment A. But now they've got to give the attachment A's up front. And so, this is the only area where I'm really hearing about a problem with communications, but I'd like to know, and I can't see, now I'm sharing my screen, I can't see who's in here, but if there are DBs here, I'd like to hear more about what your experience is and where we could improve communications. The main area I hear about it is related to DBs don't know if they're on a project. And so we bring this up whenever we possibly can to primes. We were just at a conference last week at CBG. Joe's on this call, and we definitely addressed this too. The panel that I was a part of brought this up, and there were primes in the room. But I'd like to hear if there are more communication issues you all are experiencing. Nope, it's all
Nope.
good.
No,
Okay,
maybe there's
great.
not enough DBEs on today, but if there's a prime in the room and you're willing to be transparent, is it because you feel like you might have a good enough relationship with that DBE that you might list them, knowing that if you win it, that you're going to bring them on? Because that could conceivably be, it's good because you got a good relationship, but the problem is that they just don't know that they've been listed.
Right, I could speak a little bit to that if you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
When we turn a bid in, we know who we're utilizing. There's no question about that. It's typically then whether or not we're read low, whether us or at that point the subcontractors care whether or not they were utilized, right? And at this time, we usually, if we're red low, on when it's almost immediate that we're getting and fielding phone calls from various subcontractors that had quoted us. And that is really when that notification and that conversation is happening. Now unique to DBEs, it's asked of our group at Walbeck that, that the phone call goes the other direction as well. And we are intending to, and maybe it's not perfect, but notify the day of us being read low if a DBE was utilized as well.
Okay, so prior to the bid being determined to be the low bid, communication may not happen, huh?
No, typically not. I mean, it can be shared, like those conversations can be had, and it's nothing that's going to change at that point. But typically, it's once we're read low that everybody's interested in whether or not they were utilized.
Okay, all right, all right. And
Hi, this is Lynette from Double D. Do you mind if I say something?
Sure, go right ahead.
Hi. So sometimes that happens, and usually with Welbeck Group, Northeast Asphalt, they're fantastic. They let us know after they actually receive a contract or shortly after the bid is and they're read low. Not all contractors do that. Some simply just don't even notify you at all. And you can call and they say until they have a contract, they won't let you know. And then months and months can go by and you still don't know. And then by the time you know you have the project, you have already bid a significant amount of work. So that doesn't always work for everyone. But yes, Walbeck Group has been great.
Yeah, and Lynette, I can add to that because I think there's been some confusion on the prime contractor side that if they tell a DBE that they included them on the commitment or form 1506, that is a subcontract. And so until award or in some cases execution, I was told like we're just not going to do that. And so what we've been trying to clarify is it's a commitment, right? Because none of us actually knows if that contract will get awarded or finally go to execution. So there is no problem with you telling the DBE that, yeah, if we actually have this contract, we put you on our commitment. It's a heads up. If you don't have the commitment, you don't have the contract, obviously you're not going to use them. So I'm hoping that we can continue to get that word out there so that there's not some erroneous reason to not be letting a DBE know that you are on the commitment.
There's a hand raised. I can't tell whose hand it is, but jump right into the conversation.
Hey, Ruben, this is Joe. So this did come up at our conference, and one of the things that I'm recommending to DBEs and actually strongly advising DBEs is to really pay attention to the online contract log on WisDOT's website, because that's when you can tell if a contract has been executed. And if you know you've submitted a quote on that particular contract, that's when you need to call that particular prime contractor to find out if you're going to be utilized or not. But it is, I mean, it is a valid process where you don't get utilized if the prime is not going to be awarded that contract, and the 1506s and the attachment A's won't be available unless that contract is executed. So, let's just kind of remind DBEs that there's a tool that you can use to find out if that contract that you submitted a quote on, if it's been executed and they have the contract also.
Yeah, but is that timely enough? Because if you don't know that somebody used you, wouldn't you be shopping around, trying to get, submit, bids and numbers to other contractors?
Well, the DB,
Or if the
well, let me
if the
respond.
contract isn't awarded for months.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, some DBEs are just aggressive like that. They're going to submit quotes, and they're going to submit quotes because they know their capacity. And the only way that comes into play is if the DBE has actually reached its maximum capacity on participating in contract. But what I share with the DBEs that we're working with is to get out there, build relationships, and have conversations prime contractors. Because if you get utilized, that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's a good thing. And you know, if there's some mistakes on, you know, utilizing you on a certain bid and communication isn't there, I mean, I think that's just an easy fix for communication back and forth to DBEs who have established relationships with prime contractors. So I'm trying to be on the positive side. I'm saying, even though there may be a problem, you know, just one phone call, like Christy Wade talked about, is that, hey, if they don't call you, that means you're not being utilized. If they call you, that means you got to get all your ducks in a row to actually start participating. So,
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes, but you know, because of there's a lot of good things that happened when we aligned with the regulation, but this unfortunate piece, which is more recent, is that just because you didn't get a phone call doesn't mean you don't have the job. And I know Lynette can speak to that directly. And so if you did get the job and now it's months later, you didn't get supplies, you don't have, you know, your suppliers aren't honoring their quotes to you anymore. Now you're in a place where it's like, well, what do I can't actually do this job because I didn't know that I was on it. So, you know, the only thing that I can continually recommend to primes is just let DBs know that you put them on the commitment, right? They're on the commitment. So track then, you know, where it's going. Like Joe said, you can look at the contract log. But at whatever point we're at, award or execution, you already know I'm on that commitment. So I don't know. Trevor, and I don't know what other primes are on here, but Trevor, is there an issue that you would see with doing that?
No, I don't see any issue with conversations like that occurring, you know, at least what our intent is, right? Whether or not we used them. But I think part of what the issue that Double D would be kind of referring to also, and I'm not going to claim that I have some miracle answer. It's just kind of how I think the process goes. But I mean, for instance, in the February letting, we were read low on a big job that has a very tight schedule. I believe it was into the second week of March before we had a contract on it. And there's that month of time where all contractors involved, you know, they just don't know whether or not they have capacity to keep bidding work because they don't know whether or not this DOT February letting job is coming down the pipeline. So that gets to be definitely challenging for everybody. But again, I'm not going to claim to have an answer. But
I have a comment for that. That's not the problem as much as not knowing you were read on the contract. If they let us know that you're low on the contract, for us, it was 7 months before the contract was awarded by the DOT. 7.5 months, we had 3 price increases in between, and I could have locked my pricing in with the suppliers, so we couldn't even do the project and make any money. We would have done it for a large loss. So I had to back out of a large, significant contract for us because I was not notified we were read low. And I had called twice and asked the question and was not given an answer. So that's what happened to us. So it's like I said before, there's certain contractors that are great with it, and there's other contractors that until they have a contract, they will not notify you or give you an answer, and that is when it's a problem.
So that seems to be a gap, you know, in the process. And is there some way, Madeline, I'm putting you on the spot. Is there some way with the different types of policy and procedures that you have that we might be able to shine a light, you know, and track, you know, when that happens or when it doesn't happen? Because it certainly sounds like it puts the DBs at a disadvantage, you know, in terms of price and in terms of capacity.
Madalena,
Matt?
Ruben, it's
Yeah.
Matt, can I jump
Come on,
in real
Matt.
quick?
Yeah.
I gotta get off in a bit. Let me know if my audio is okay too, because I'm driving.
Okay, you're good.
The whole conversation is a bit confusing to me, and I think everybody's I understand what the concerns are, but the attachment A process that we go through right now should put to bed some of the concerns about commitment. So at this point, there should have been a mutually signed attachment A. At that point, everyone, the sub or the DBE should know that they're being utilized if the prime is read low, if they get the work. So I don't know what this communication back and forth is. It's something that every contractor shares. The concern is simply just because you're read low doesn't mean you're going to ultimately get the work and have that contract awarded. And that takes a long time sometimes. So I think that all I can figure out is that's the issue. The contractor shouldn't have to call, the prime contractor shouldn't have to necessarily call subs up and say, hey, we were read low. I mean, that information's all over the website, all over Bid Express, whatever. And there is a reluctance to have somebody call it. It's not a DBE. The DBEs are pretty much locked in. The same issue comes from non-DBEs, where in some cases a prime will not really comment on anything until they've got an award. They essentially aren't required to. They don't have to say, well, yeah, you're low until the award comes. The DBEs are a little different because I believe, at least in my mind, they are, because they're locked in. They're committed based on the 1506 and the attachment A.
Yeah, I could respond to that unless somebody else wants to. I know
I would
Trevor,
love-
you would be
I
able
want to
to,
hear
or
from
Lynette.
Lynette.
Okay, good.
So that's great, but all DBEs are sending that commitment in, and we do compete against each other, and we send that DBE commitment with every quote. We don't know if you used us or not when we send that commitment. So that doesn't solve the issue for us at all.
Yeah, and then
Right, and that's why it's the new kind of issue that has been created by our new system, because I think DBEs are really trying to make it easier for primes so that, because now the primes have to submit all this documentation. So DBE is saying, let me make it easier for you. Here's my quote, here's the attachment A, I signed it. If you're going with me, then you've already got that paperwork, and the majority of DBEs will do that. But now they don't know if they're
Right.
selected. And you can get a bad name for yourself if you refuse to send in that attachment A, because I've heard of like a backlash too. If you're like, nope, I'm only going to give it to you if you're going to use me, and then that becomes an issue. So yeah, Matt, you were absolutely right. That's how it used to be, but now it's changed.
Yeah, but then again, how could DBEs not know? How could the primes put them forward and not know? So it almost needs to be a trigger when the prime knows, even after they get the attachment A from the DBE, if they're going to put that DBE forward, there needs to be a communication to say, we're going to use you, if we get it.
Yeah, that's what we're asking for, but that's not what's happening. We have not looked into formalizing a
When
process.
everything's submitted.
Yeah, but we need to do like a process and we can let somebody else come in, but we almost need to do a process analysis. And then it seems like there's one step missing in this process. And that step is the communication back to the DBE to say, well, we received your attachment A. And I think, we're going to use you for this project if we win. But, we have to, know that we're going to win before we use you. And that will give the DBE an opportunity to make preparations to say, okay, if I'm going to, if they're going to use me, maybe I don't submit on another job, or I need to go back and pay attention to make sure that I'm in communication with my suppliers so that I can be watching the price fluctuation.
Matt's got his hand up again.
Go ahead, Matt. Matt?
Maybe he didn't take it down.
Yeah, I think it might have been stuck up from before. Others, jump in to the conversation. Because one of the things, the outcomes that we would expect from these conversations is that we would look at, some of the issues that were brought up, and then we might figure out solutions. Now, Brittany, I think you just put your hand up. Go right ahead.
Actually, it's Lynette.
Lynette, come on.
Why, when that bid is submitted, can't the DOT shoot off an email to the DBE that it was their commitment? Why does it have to be on the contractor at all?
Yeah, we can't release any information until contract execution. So,
Okay.
and that went through our internal counsel. So, we could do is look at saying this is a requirement, prime contractors, you must notify DBEs that you've included on the commitment. We can make that a requirement. I mean, that's the only sort of next step thing I can see that we would do. That would require more discussion. And then we have to determine what are the consequences. I mean, when we do things that are outside of regulatory guidance, then it becomes gray and we need a lot of feedback and input and make sure that we're proceeding correctly. Whereas when it's in the regulation, while we're still going to do outreach and get input, we can, have the confidence that this is an okay thing to do. So while I don't object to saying, okay, it's just going to be a policy and prime, you need to notify the DBE that you've included on the commitment. It's not a quick fix, but it does seem sort of like the most obvious one of, well, just if you're not going to do it on your own, then we'll just require you do it. But from experience, I know it's not that simple to make that kind of change. But to me, that seems like that's the no-brainer one. Do we have any other ideas about how that could happen without a firm requirement?
I have an idea. This is Brittany. That they don't need the attachment A up front is the big thing. And why do we have to give it to them right away? Why can't we make it policy that they submit our quote like they can, and then they do the attachment A later so we know?
Or
Why?
even that morning.
Yeah. Why does it have to be done before? The prime is the one putting the pressure on us about it.
Sure, it's your right to withhold that, and you will feel pressure back in turn from the primes because they're under pressure from us to gather all of this paperwork. So you could be the one who's holding up their submission.
Yep.
But
But
I
force
don't
it
know
there.
that you want to be the one, you can choose to. I just know that then we are also waiting, okay, got the quote, fine, so it's responsive, but then we're gonna have to wait until the next day, 24 hours later, to finalize checking in that contractor.
Absolutely. I
Still
agree with
runs the risk of being non-responsive. Pardon?
that's my only solution I can think of that would force their hand on that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
So other feedback. So we know this is one again that will be, we've got the problem, I think, kind of defined well enough. We just don't, have a solution documented. So if there's other suggestions about other dimensions to this problem or proposed solutions, we're open to that.
Say, Ruben, it's Joe again.
Yeah.
Let me just, I would caution that, prime contractors have to let certain DBEs know that they're going to be utilized, because if you have two quotes from folks or two or three quotes that folks are looking for the same type of work in that particular contract, and then the prime actually arbitrarily makes that decision, it may not be fair for the other DBEs who are competing, right? And if we want to continue to make sure that we meet these goals, it gives the prime an opportunity to really kind of sit down and figure out which DBEs they want to utilize after the contract is executed. I mean, for me, that's the reason why I thought that the process was put in place, is that everyone can submit their price quote. The prime contractor is waiting for them to actually not only to be awarded the contract, but then the contract would be executed, and then try to achieve their particular goals in that particular contract. So I would just say that we're assuming that it's just only one DBE that has submitted a price quote. But if you have multiple DBEs submitting the price quotes for the same type of work, I think we may want to take that into consideration.
So Joel, let me clear that up, because the commitment, the 1506, when it comes in with the bid, it can't be changed. So at that point, the prime did lock in and make their decision of the DBEs that they're going to use. So later on, if they need to make a change, then they're going to have to go through commitment modification process. So at the time, and that's why I'm not seeing a negative impact on the prime, to let the DBEs know that, yeah, we put you on the commitment, because they've locked that commitment.
Yeah, and the other thing that we want to guard against is bid shopping, right? if the DBE subcontractor is going to give you a bid and things like that, if they're going to reveal that to you, they're giving you their best shot, and you don't want to, you don't want to create an environment where you can bid shop their information.
Right.
All right. Others on this?
Yeah, Ruben, it's Lamont again. So again, when we're looking at this and trying to figure out, what role we can play to make this a smoother transaction, we receive guidance from our corp counsel that, when we're looking at these contracts, the contract is between Milwaukee County and the prime. And so they really frown against any department reaching out to subcontractors outside of our department. CBDP is really the only department that has contact with everybody involved in the contract, but specifically the subs. So in utilizing the B2G system that we do, we were looking at that as kind of being some of the options to help us make sure that we're looking at this thing holistically. So when we're in B2G, the contract gets entered into B2G. All of the subs that were listed to be participating on the contract are listed in B2G. Working with B2G to find out if there's a way that once a firm is added to a contract that they're alerted to their inclusion on the contract. But if the firm is going into B2G on a regular basis, anytime they're attached to a contract, that contract will now show up in their queue, showing that they are, a part of these contracts, whether it's ones they're currently working on or ones that were just awarded. But also in the process, before we even approve the DBEs to count for participation in the B2G payment tracking system, we have to get a copy of that subcontract between the prime and the sub. And so again, that's another step in the process where we're ensuring that the subs that were listed on their commitment forms that are now added into the B2G contract record, before they're approved in there to count, we're getting a copy of that subcontract or the contract between the prime and the sub to again ensure that the firms that are identified on here or identified in your proposal or bid are actually the firms that are aware that they're working on the project. And so again, it doesn't address the issue immediately because sometimes those records aren't entered into the system immediately. It's usually around when that first payment comes in, and now they're trying to put that information in. Usually it's around that time that that contract record would get, put in, but there are things that are there to help us. It's just the time aspect and where they fall into place in the process of this that it becomes the issue.
Yeah. So are you suggesting that WisDOT go to B2G now opposed to?
Oh, no. I'm not suggesting, I'm not suggesting anything like that. I'm just saying some of the softwares that we have that allows us some of the abilities to do things electronically instead of manually to help us in that process do exist. So I don't know if something like that, in WisDOT and their move, to AASHTO or whatever they're going to use, if something like that exists. Again, the timeliness of when those actions occur aren't necessarily the best, but it is something that we would be able to identify within the first few months of a project and not halfway through or at project closeout that something was amiss.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Yeah. All right. So this has been a good, conversation. Anyone else want to weigh in? All right. All right. Okay, Madalena, let's look at the next item under there. And
Looks like
so
we have a hand up though.
Oh, okay, let's go. Let's who's
Well,
that?
there was.
There's still time. All right, come on.
Sorry, that was me. I just wondered, I'm not familiar with
Go ahead.
Bid Express, but I'm wondering if this is something that can be resolved through Bid Express easily.
Not that I am aware of. It doesn't have a notification system like that. It sounds like that's Meenal's voice.
Yeah, it is. I apologize.
And oh, no problem. I just can't, when I'm sharing my screen, I can't see anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we And like Lamont said, similarly, we can track through CRCS as well, and we have a heads up even when the sublet is happening, right? But it's the external piece that the DBEs, at what point can they tap into it? And but thanks for that suggestion, and I can ask BPD as well, Bureau of Project Development, if there's some other kind of notification that would come out of bid X. I'm guessing not, and I'm thinking it might cause the same kind of issue that Lamont is bringing up about, we can't go communicating to other subs because we are working with the prime. And so it really leaves it to the prime to have that communication. Thanks for that, though.
Yeah, there was
and I'll add, I just got a message from Matt. He got cut off and now he's in another meeting. So yeah, he'll send other feedback later.
there was someone else trying to weigh in.
Is that Brittany or Lynette?
Okay.
Okay.
So all right. So thank you for that wonderful interchange. Now going to something I suspect that it's a little bit lighter. How do we build that relationship between the DBEs and the primes? I can remember. No, stay where we were, Madeline. It's just
at 2?
It's in the.
Okay.
Yeah, it's go back to where we were.
I'm in the same spot. We were at goal 2, even though that's the wrong number apparently, but enhanced contractor and DB relations.
Right, so we're under the objective now, and so if you go now, we
Okay.
look at objective 2, right? Objective 2, how do we build that interaction between DBE and primes? And so I can remember when I was at the WisDOT, the primes, I would always say that they want to use DBEs, but they want to make sure that they know that they can count on that DBE to give them a good product and just do a good job. And so at one point in DOT's history, and maybe there still is pre-bid meetings, and they're mandatory pre-bid meetings. So particularly for mega projects, there was an opportunity for DBEs to cross the path and get to know primes, more often. And I don't know if that's still going on in the department, Bob and Madalena.
Yeah, just on some of the larger LUTs, Ruben. Just as it was in the past, some of the large majors or the large megas still have that ability. Just haven't had a lot.
Yeah.
We do have one coming. We do have one LUT later. I believe it's in December on 43. That's certainly going to be a very large lot, in and around 150 million or something like that. That we can certainly see if that's something that we would want to do.
Yeah.
I think we would want to do that. Have a mandatory pre-bid meeting for that project. So.
And the 43 team has been great, and 50 and 20 also, about including us in those meetings, whether they're mandatory or not. I know there have been a couple of pre-bid meetings that weren't mandatory, but they still invited us. And so then we did what we could to get DBEs there as well and create that conversation. It's been more difficult when everyone has been in the virtual environment. You can't just kind of take someone aside and have a conversation. So we do look forward to when that can happen again. But in the meantime, we're still taking those opportunities wherever possible with the region.
And to Lynette and others that are on there, is there any value to having more of that, or is that, we can be transparent. Is that a waste of time? Having more face time with the primes, does that matter in terms of how it might build a partnership with those primes on jobs coming up?
This is Brittany. Lynette's not on anymore. I think for us, we've been established enough and have our relationships that it would be more for like newer DBEs that they would benefit from that.
Okay. Joe, what do you think? Do you have an opinion on that? You think that DBEs don't, get enough face time with primes, and so primes are not comfortable with DBEs because they don't know who they are?
From my standpoint, I got a real snapshot. We had about 5 or 6 primes in the room last week. And after our workshop, I can tell you the primes were up exchanging business cards with the DBEs. So we just got to create that culture of collaboration. I mean, as much as we can, get them in the same room and have them talk to each other so that they have some face time instead of over the phone. So it could be an issue, but we're talking to DBEs that says the communication is one of the most important things you can have with a prime. So get on the phone and call them. Establish a relationship with guys like Trevor.
Yeah, and you might see me adding here DBE roundtables, because maybe we can keep talking a little bit about that, Joe, but that I thought was very successful at the CBG conference. The hosted DBE roundtable.
Yeah, so what we intentionally did was reach out to all of the DBs that we were working with, and also OBAC was working with, whether they were certified or whether they were actually looking to get certified in certain areas. And so at the conference, about, I'd say 25% of our attendees ended up becoming either DBE stakeholders or actually DBE firms. And so that night after, we had Antonio Freeman speak, and it was ironic that, his message was really about, kind of paying attention and being the greatness by observing, right? So we wanted to get everybody in the room and just have a conversation for about an hour. And I must applaud the attendees because they missed they missed all of the free drinks. So that tells you their commitment. But what we found out is that a lot of the DBs who got an opportunity to meet each other really started to replicate and get advice from other DBEs that had been in the business for a while. So when Madalena talks about that roundtable, it gives a platform for DBEs. I mean, they do it already with the networking session with the Golden Shovel Awards, but to be intentional to just have a roundtable and have that discussion, I thought was very helpful.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
So COVID has opened up new ways, and we're like right now, we're communicating, on Zoom, here today. Are there opportunities to kind of use like new platforms to kind of create like greater awareness and greater kind of interaction between DBEs and primes? Or there's something that we can do, and maybe it doesn't have to be. Maybe the pre-bid doesn't have to be that face-to-face meeting. Maybe it could be the primes. Some primes could sponsor it, or in conjunction with DOT. But are there some out-of-the-box thinking that we can do to kind of build this community, a greater bridge and community between DBs and primes?
Hey, Ruben, it's Lamont again. I think one of the opportunities that kind of stands out in this process where we could utilize firms that are having issues with identifying DBEs is utilizing those submit good faith efforts. We have a listing of those firms that provide those. They provide, or they substantiate why a good faith effort is warranted for the solicitation that they're responding to. So maybe that's an opportunity for us in the DBE community when we're seeing that, is to have some sessions where we invite those good faith effort submitters to meet with potential DBEs. And again, it's not a full fix, but again, we identified a firm that had issues in identifying firms to partner with. Now let's give them the opportunity to learn about some of these different firms in different areas and see if that may help reduce good faith efforts, or at least habitual submitters of good faith efforts.
Yeah, and I love that idea, but the idea assumes that people submit good faith efforts because they really can't find DBEs. But what if that's not, the case? What if some firms are just strategic and not, using DBE firms, but that's just my half glass empty approach. That there are some primes out there that simply, don't want to meet the DBE goal, so they don't look. And so why would they take advantage of that type of opportunity?
Yep,
Well,
nope,
because if
that's
they
very
don't
true.
satisfy good faith effort, then their request is denied. So they must satisfy good faith effort. So if it's clear that they have not met up the requirements for WisDOT, anyway, I know Vermont's crew has way fewer GFE requests than we do, but yeah, we have to satisfy good faith effort, and that is one of the shifts that was made in the last couple of years, is that good faith effort requests have actually started to be denied. So we've had a vast reduction in the amount of requests that are coming in because it's clear you really do need to demonstrate good faith effort, and it can't be simply you didn't want to work with DBEs. That's not sound reasoning or justifiable reason to not use DBEs.
And I love the idea, so maybe when someone gets a couple of good faith waiver denials, and maybe they have to attend a workshop, where you maybe they might begrudgingly attend, I don't know, but maybe somehow there should be an introduction to more DBs. If you can't find DBs, here's this workshop that we recommend or compel that you go to.
Right. And I think
That's
we're
the-
finding less the issue of not being able to find a DBE and more so that the DBE costs more. And that's where we've been working a lot with industry on that cost analysis and, what's reasonable. And you can't just make a decision based on cost alone. So, that's some of the shifting variable too, depending on where you are in the state, of course. And I love that idea as well that Lamont is talking about. What we do generally when we're seeing that we have a habitual offender, I'll call it, with GFEs, or somebody who's just not really getting it, is that we require they meet with our GFE analyst and we go over the process with them. But we could add a step to that, I think, of as Lamont's suggesting, potentially. Now you're going to need to maybe meet with a group of DBs. We'll set it up. Maybe you set it up. Some primes have like a regular standing sort of happy hour with DBEs once a month where it's on the calendar. They shoot that out with their kind of newsletter each month and let DBEs know, hey, we've got an open time for conversation with you. Come on Thursday at 5, whatever it is. And so that's a way that that primes have been also supporting this kind of interaction, I think.
Yeah. So Madalena, in that explanation, I think you pointed out kind of another problem that about the DBE, their prices are, when they put the quotes, they're high. And I know in like some of the work that I'm doing now, DBEs, since they're small, they don't make big purchases, so they don't get commodities of scales. They don't get like discounted rates for volume and those sorts of things. And so maybe that's something that we should flag, as well as something to investigate in the future, because if that's standing in the way of DBEs getting selected, maybe there's a way that there can be some collaborative purchasing or something. The idea just kind of rung out when you made that statement.
Yeah, thanks for that.
All right. So anyone else? I know we used to do just like we do the speed networking for the folks through the trans program. We would also do the speed networking idea with primes and DBEs. Is that still going on? Will we have opportunities?
That happens at the annual event, but Kathleen, our GFE analyst, suggested us starting to do maybe quarterly, looking at how we work around the main season here. But we also thought we could ask primes to host these, and then we would take part with them. But that could maybe then go to different parts of the state, and I think that the primes would be open to that. I think DBEs in the area or potential DBEs would be interested in participating in that. So that's in the works to have more of those events, and we were hoping for maybe the first one towards the end of fall.
And then also, don't rule out virtual speed networking, too. Let's kind of build that in there too, because sometimes you don't really have to be. We find out now that, companies can be more efficient, particularly, construction companies. They may not, have the time to travel to a certain place. And so if we can do like virtual speed networking, that also gives us an opportunity to make the connection.
Yeah, great.
All right. Any other issues?
Can I make a comment on what?
Sure.
Sorry. Can I make a comment on what Lamont said? I think the point. Well, I don't know if it's the point, but the good faith effort, having that be public knowledge of what they're getting a good faith effort. I feel like with the DOT, it's more of a secret, and it kind of puts the prime on, or holding them accountable for us to see what they got a good faith effort for, because then we know, like, we might be able to report like, hey, they shouldn't have gotten it because we could have done this.
Sure. If you go to the contract log again, like Joe said, and because there's some information we can give ahead of time, right? Just by basically what's out there. If you see the 1202 column is marked, you know that prime requested a GFE. You don't know the details of it, and that doesn't get out there, but that apparent low bidder, if you see 1202 column marked, they submitted a GFE request. So you'll know it looking at that. I agree with you. We could make it more explicit, but there's a way to see it now. At least it's not a hidden thing, is what I'm trying to say.
Is there a reason the details aren't given out though? Like,
yeah, it goes all to the processing of those materials and the ability for that prime also to appeal the decision. So we wouldn't put any of that information out there until the full process was able to take place.
okay.
Yeah.
Somebody's ticking. Is it a countdown? Did you hear that?
I did hear that. So it's interesting. The first set of questions regarding good faith efforts were when good faith efforts are denied. And then the prime, might need some help because that person might be a habitual, good faith effort submitter. But your question, Brittany, had to do with when good faith efforts are approved, right? And then the transparency around that, right? And then Madalena responds and she says, well, like, while that is in process, that information is should not be made available. But at the end, it is.
Well, the details, right, but you can always see that they put in a request. Right away, you'll be able to see that.
But like he said, once it's approved, why can't the details be released? Why is it such a secret?
Then you'd have to come with an open record request.
But isn't
Yeah,
that
so the details of that submission, anything that's related to that, and I know Scott's on the call, so you could maybe really speak more to that, Scott, about what's released and what isn't, and what's open records. Is Scott still here?
Yeah, he's still there.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
I mean, as far as what exactly we're trying to release, Madalena?
Yeah, they're asking about the details of a GFE request. And so any of that to me has to come through open records. That is not something that we just put out there. We will indicate if somebody's request was approved or not. And then, we may end up at the next bidder after the process, but we won't at some point say, here are the details, here was their commitment, here's who they rejected, etc. That would have to come through an open records request.
And even that, I think it might be difficult to release some of that stuff because it is,
Yeah. No, then it goes to OGC who reviews what we can actually put out there. So it is a whole process for sure.
So I would push back and say that that's something that we probably should investigate to see, because once you're not giving out any you're not giving out any financial information necessarily, unless it's like you said earlier, that it was denied, it wasn't given because the DBE's price was too high, so it was justified. But in situations where it's not involving financial information and it's denied, I would just think that would fall in the public records realm where, you know, it should be made available.
Yeah,
But-
yeah, Ruben, oftentimes it would be, the financial would be the one that would hinder us releasing anything until something was awarded, because we don't necessarily post a contractor's bids until that contract has been awarded. So I agree with you that if it was something other than that could be something that would be released.
Yeah. So I mean, we should just check into that, because I do agree with Brittany that you know, if you've got like a habitual, you know, actor out there who continuously does this, being transparent and showing the world that this is what they do, you know, I think could be put them on that wall of shame. But Supervisor Johnson.
Ruben, I don't know how much time we have, but I wanted to give a shout out to you, my former colleague, Joe Davis, and to Mr. Robinson for the diligent work that he and his staff are doing. I appreciate what I'm hearing. It seems that you're being very conscientious, all of you, and you who are WisDOT staff. Thank you very much for your contributions, and I'll leave it there in case Brittany or someone else would like to ask questions or add more to the conversation. Thank you.
Hey, Supervisor Johnson, before you leave, Supervisor Johnson was a part of some maybe 20 years ago, the initial DBE Advisory Committee. And he actually chaired, I think, the labor part, you know, back then, but he was one of the chairs. And so thank you for your continued commitment to watching, you know, what's going on in this arena.
Well, I appreciate that, sir, and I appreciate the Golden Shovel Award. I appreciate all that's been given to me. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it all. Thanks.
All right. So anyone else want to weigh in? And we'll go to our last few items that we have here. All right.
I just want to say that I was just making the comment about it based on like Lamont's platform of however they do that, why it couldn't be that way for the DOT. That's the only reason I brought it up.
No, that's fine, Brittany. Yeah, we're just brainstorming here, you know, and at some point, once we get, you know, ideas and things down, you know, we'll talk about what's doable from the WisDOT, you know, standpoint. But right now, it's just idea generation. So nothing is, you know, off the table. But, you know, when we talk about making it operational, that's when we really have to roll up our sleeves to see what's what. So Madeline, if you can scroll down to goal number 6, I hope your goal number 6 is the same as mine. I hope we're caught up. Let's see. This one is create specifically for DBEs, identify dedicated resources for DBE development. Okay. All right, we're caught up. All right, perfect. So one of the things that continues to come up is that, you know, why don't we have resources dedicated and bifurcated for DBE consultants and DBE contractors? And this goes back, and I know Ross said she was having technical difficulty, but this is talking about the supportive services that DOT offers, right? You know, so what do we need to do? You know, should we have, you know, I know they have different needs. Consultants, DBE consultants have different needs than DBE contractors. So what are some of those supportive services that might be particular to DBE consultants? You know, what do, and I don't know if there's a bunch of DBE consultants on here today, but if there is, you know, here's your time to weigh in. I think I saw Dave earlier, but what are some sort of supportive services that need to be here that are particular or specific to DBE consultant development? Let's start there.
Nina's still on?
I am.
You have thoughts about this one?
Let me absorb it first.
And are we at 7 here? I mean, this is the one, are we right?
Yep, we're at
Identify
7.
and I feel like, Ruben, this can't be our final version because I'm finding so many typos here, so
Right, that's not the
sorry.
final version. That's all right.
I don't know why, but okay.
I might have sent you the wrong version. That's my fault.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
that's not the final version. Yeah.
I think one thing that would be good would be maybe guidance on masterworks and cars and all that fun stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Good, okay.
If you're looking at it from a DBE company growth for small firms, I would say just general like big brother guidance from firms that have been through it before, like getting your the CFRs done, the financial reports. There's like so many like things to do. And if you're starting up, you don't know like what categories to set up in your accounting and just general business guidance. There's a lot to it. There's a lot back office things that just get missed. And sometimes it's too hard to catch up and set it up in the areas, I guess. More of a mentoring type of a thing, informal.
Right, I wonder if our coaching program would be helpful there.
Yeah, some sort of a coaching thing, like what worked, what didn't work, what are some good arenas to be networking in, where do the DOT PMs hang out, how do you get in their faces? Because when they see that NOI come through, if they don't know you, it's not going to matter.
Right.
Great. Anyone else? All right. So what about, and we can go back if someone else comes up with some ideas later, we can come back. But for DBE contracting, DBE contractors are rare because, it requires bonding, capitalization, lot more cash up front, to get into business. What can supportive services do, to be helpful in helping firms start up, grow, and develop? Anybody? No ideas?
Well, I don't know. Again, this is Lamont. I don't know what the budget or funding structure is for DOT. I think we're still trying to figure out if something exists for Milwaukee County, but we're working with our insurance agent in regards to seeing if we are able to offer some type of supplemental insurance program for small businesses. So what we did is we identified like less than a dozen high traffic like NACE codes or work areas that we were looking at, provided those to the insurance carrier along with like a projected dollar amount of how much work we were looking at doing over the course of a year. So we're still in the infancy stage of that, but they're going to let us know what that would look like. So if the county, had the funding to be able to do this, so say if a firm comes to the table where, they carry $300,000 worth of insurance or something like that. And generally on Milwaukee County projects, it's $1 million of general liability insurance that they must have. Instead of putting the DBE firm at a disadvantage of having them first try to acquire the insurance and then pay for the insurance with no guarantee being awarded the work. What we're trying to do is trying to alleviate that potential obstacle to see if they're awarded contract, have this program in place to help make up that difference that they have in regards to their coverage. Again, we don't know, what that would look like in regards to, any additional fees or anything like that. Like I said, we're still in the very beginning of having these discussions. But for us, it was centered around getting our DBE firms to stop thinking as subcontractors and think as a prime contractor and run the contract. So we're trying to figure out what are those exist, those issues that currently are in place that we can help move aside to, like it's often said, level the playing field and allow them to, swim in the waters where, they're so used to the shallow end. Let's see what happens. Let's see how good they can be. But if we never give them the opportunity, we never know.
I love that idea because that kind of reminds me of how the WisDOT loan mobilization program used to work. Is when you got a contract, and even the mobilization program that we did at the county, I don't know if it's still there, but once you got the contract, you could get a loan because you got a contract with WisDOT, right? And WisDOT would be able to, write out get joint checks, and so the agency would get, their money, and you would get your money. But that's the type of out of the box thinking that I think we have to bring to solutions like this. So I love that idea about, because it is a upfront cost that DBEs have to go through, errors and omissions insurance, bonding and all these other things. And so you don't know if you're going to get a contract yet, but yet you have to incur all these expenses. I suspect that's the cost of doing business, but others, please weigh in.
So, hey, Ruben, is that a question for the governmental agencies, or is that just a general question for anybody that's in that space?
A general question.
Okay, so at CBG, the industry actually brought CBG on to really kind of create this partnership with WisDOT so we can build capacity in aspiring DBEs and existing DBEs. And so we come at it in a different direction. If there's any funding out there from the private agency or even from the infrastructure bill, specifically on federally funded projects, we go after it and we advise our DBEs to actually apply for that funding. And some of that funding is either forgivable loans or grants. And so the loan mobilization program is a great opportunity for folks to apply. But then when we create this master class, which is 9 modules, and then an additional 9 graduate modules, we're actually pouring into the ready, willing, and able federal regulations for DBE so that prime contractors know that DBE has capacity as a business to continue to provide good services. So that's what we're doing from CBG side. And, less than half a year, we've worked with OBOC to get maybe 4 or 5 businesses certified and get some folks in pipeline for funding, like through the Northwest Side CDC, WIBIC, the Business Council, and also the Milwaukee Economic Development Corporation. So we're able to do a lot more from the private sector standpoint, but we're partnering with WisDOT so that when these DBEs get certified, we know when they get introduced to the industry that they come with the full capacity of at least learning modules so that they can be successful.
Yeah, it'd certainly be interesting to know a little bit more about that, Joe. So thanks for offering that.
Absolutely.
Others? I remember when we did like the first mega project, the Marquette Interchange, we used an OSIP, owner control insurance program, but that's usually for bigger projects. But the concept, of covering like all the contractors on the project went over really well, particularly for DBEs. I see Bob turned on his thing, so maybe Bob's going to weigh in.
Yeah, so we didn't do that on the North Leg. You're absolutely right. It helped us with risk on our construction projects, and then that it provided that insurance for others. It's not that we don't want to use it. I guess it's just a kind of a business decision, and then we working with industry too, making sure that it makes sense for them.
Yeah. I would have definitely liked to have heard Matt Grove on that. So maybe we'll save that question because, sometimes when industry does their bids, they include the insurances and stuff like that in their bids. And maybe they may even be able to write up some of that. But I know when we first did it, it was controversial, but the idea of having some wraparound insurance that would, give like small businesses an opportunity to compete certainly, rang well for those small businesses. Other comments, we got about 3 minutes left, and this has been a great conversation, and I know the team has taken good notes, but other conversations, are we missing anything in this whole conversation, not just today, but since we've been talking? The floor is open for other suggestions, questions, or comments.
Ruben, did you say that Rosalind had fallen off the call? She was having trouble?
Early on, she sent a note saying
Okay.
that she was having connection problems.
Okay, well, I wish she was here so she could talk about this, but I'll share a little bit of something that we recently started to work on. As the dust has settled a bit and we're now stable in relation to compliance with federal regulation, we can be investing again in our firms and starting to, for ourselves, look at not only what did we do before that we can bring back online, like mobilization loan program and mentor protege for consultants, but what's new? What could we do? And we were realizing that there are so many opportunities that our partner organizations may have underway. For example, the other day we saw one that I think it's EDBC, and that's Ethnically Diverse Business Coalition or Council. Marjorie Rucker, who's is associated with that group. So they were hosting a luncheon with the mayor. And so that got us thinking, well, there are all these types of opportunities that we could be maybe trading with our existing partners or identify a pool of funds so that we could cover and host DBE firms to go to these certain events where they would have access to decision makers and maybe to some other opportunities that we didn't have before, sponsoring different types of conferences for DBEs to engage in. And then Ruben, you and I were talking about different sorts of curriculum resources and business building classes that we could also look into sponsoring through the state or looking at grants that are available to us or that we may have already that could we put funds towards that. So I think we're also trying now to identify those types of things that we haven't done, but that could be relatively quickly put into place for DBEs to have more networking opportunities with or without prime engagement, but with important parts of the community that could benefit them.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. In my work at the Urban League, we've partnered with different industries like sciences. We've done grants to DWD to help train 13 different cohorts, and they have actually hired like 90% of the folks that we've trained. And we've done the same thing with hospitals and other things. So I suspect that, the trades industry, we've gotten funds from DWD to do things as well. So it would be a logical extension for DOT to look at, partnering with community agencies that really could focus on how to help these businesses develop, sustain, and grow. So should definitely be willing to explore that. And I see Christina has her hand up.
Yes, I'm just checking in to let you know I'm closing the group. I just wanted to be off.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you all. Great conversation. Looking for more.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody.
So good morning, everybody. Welcome back. We got a lot of traction on our last meeting. Well, before we begin, Jocasta, is it public that you're leaving us from our subcommittee?
Yes, I didn't know if I should say it here or
Yeah,
but
it would be great if
unfortunately-
you did, because I was going to also make an announcement at the end of the meeting as well. But yes, please go ahead and share with us.
Yes, I wanted to let everybody know it's good news. We have a new mayor, as you know, Mayor Cavalier Johnson, and so that triggered an election for Common Council president because he was our outgoing president, and so Alderman Perez became the Common Council president, and he has named a very diverse slate of committee chairs. And I have been named chairwoman of the Public Safety, Public Health Committee, and have also picked up other committee assignments as we're now short-staffed because we're losing alders as they go on to become mayor, or they go into the administration like Nick Kovac. And so I'm having to pick up some extra committee work and really think I need to lighten my load a little, even though as I listen to Leah and Josh, you guys are just so energetic, and everybody else, it does pain me to have to step away from this, but I hate to, get spread too thin and then I'm not being as helpful as I should be. And Bob Gutierrez, who I don't think is in our breakout session, but he's the one who recruited me to get on this committee with you guys, and you're doing such important work. Thank you so much. And I'll hopefully be useful to you as chair of this committee moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we would also like to be able to have you, if you would be willing to talk with the group at the end as well. I was going to have you talk at the beginning, but I know you joined us a little bit late. I got an email from your assistant that you'd be joining us late. So thank you so much. And I just want you to know that you've been an invaluable resource to us, to our discussions. You have just really been such an active participant in giving us great ideas, and your contributions will truly be missed. And I do understand, but this is a big loss for us, your departure. So I just want to express my appreciation to you, my gratitude.
Thank you so much, Leah.
I expressed it as well, Joe. It's been great, and we've talked. We met before I left my role with the state, and I think the work you're doing, driving the conversation. I don't think this will be the last time we'll ever talk, and I definitely don't think this will be the last time you'll engage with this group at some point. Because there's some voices that need to be heard in the community, which is exactly what this whole plan is about here that we're trying to put together, is how do we get those voices in the community such as yours and other alders and other leaders in the community to truly understand the value of getting folks out here working on highway. And I think that's the first thing you asked me when we met was like, how do we get our people from our community working on these jobs? And I think that's what we're building here with this strategy, is how we can do that and how we can help support that and then matriculate them into apprenticeship. So it's been truly a pleasure. I'm sure I will see you around at some point. And your input is definitely valuable. So
thank you so much, Josh.
no, thank you.
Josh, I'm going to ask you when we come back to the larger group, if you could repeat the comments that you made to the larger group as well. I think it would be really important for them to hear just how significant Alder Zamaripa's contributions have been to this group, and how she's really pushed us to really think outside the box and make those important connections. So if you would be, if you could say, that would be great. I appreciate that.
I got you. I'll even add a little more in there. You make sure folks understand, because there's a value in having our elected officials as part of the conversation.
Yes.
To really push things forward. So yes, definitely.
Be great coming from you. So I appreciate that.
No problem. All right. So now we deal with the sad news. Now let's move on to the good. Let's cheer ourselves back up. We'll get back into this document. I think that is really laying out. We're bringing a nice little plan together, and we didn't make it to goal 2, but that's because we had so much good information in goal 1, or in goal 1, and then the strategies that are built in there. And the last one we had here that we closed out, I think we briefly touched on it, but it was so brief that I want to go back and revisit it so that we can get some notes. But we talked about collecting and sharing stories. One of the biggest values, I believe, and that's just because, as Leah knows, I'm a personal storyteller. I love sharing my story. In fact, shameless plug, I released a blog today about reentry during reentry week and how apprenticeship changed my life post-prison. But I believe that we have to be able to tell the stories, because we can get others who have not experienced it to understand why they should engage. And we get those who have experienced it to feel comfortable going through the process. And for that, especially when we're talking construction and when we're talking about underserved communities, underserved communities live by stories, right? That's what we've been built on for years, is the stories of our ancestors. So, and I know I'm kind of getting deep here, and I'm not trying to get real deep, but I'm trying to kind of lay the groundwork for why it is so important that we collect and share these stories. So I'd love to talk about ideas that folks have, how we can do that, what would be the best platform to engage, getting publications involved. I know WisDOT has a tremendous reach, but is that reach exactly where we want it to go, or do we need to engage other folks to get those that reach out there? For instance, JFF, we have a tremendous reach, but one reach we don't have is employers. We've never done like true employer engagement, and that's what I'm responsible for now in our project. In my project is employer engagement. So WisDOT, tremendous outreach, but when we get down to there, who are we missing? Are we missing anybody to be part of that? So I kind of wanted to throw that out there to the group to have some conversation. Like I said, I apologize for getting kind of deep, but I think sharing stories is so important, and it tells what we're doing. So I'll open it up for any other suggestions that folks have.
I guess I would say that I do agree. Stories are wonders. They make wonders, especially if they can see themselves in the story. So I know we've been talking a lot about trying to get them, while they're younger. So there's so many stories out there, and I'm sure we can get the stories. That's not a problem. It's just making sure we're getting the stories to the right people. So with that said, I don't know, like, for instance, on high school or middle school websites, is there any way that we could get some of these stories on there so that, some of the young people that are in school can see some stories or be able to look forward to seeing maybe a monthly or a bi-monthly or quarterly story about somebody they can more relate to and maybe want to follow. I mean, that's just an idea. I'm sure, like I said, we can get the stories. They're just all over the place. But again, trying to get more young people involved to be prepared or get their mindset ready for jobs that we're talking about as far as apprenticeships and things of that nature. So that's just an idea. They might have an Instagram page, they might have a Facebook page, whatever it is. We might already be doing it. I don't know, but that's just something that just popped in my mind as a way that we could get that those stories across to the right people.
And I just want to let you guys know, for those of you that weren't at our last meeting, what I'm doing is I'm just capturing the discussion, but then I go back and then work to put it in a strategy format to share that with everyone. So it may seem a little awkward how I'm doing it, but and if I don't capture something that you said accurately, have me go back and do the corrections as well.
And also to add that it could be community organizations that are out there too, that do help the community one way or another. So those
That's
are just
a really good point about the community organizations too. I think, the middle and high schools are great because we really have to recruit these young people who don't know where they're going and aren't clear about their pathway, or have been told that college is the only successful route. The other thing is this community engagement piece, which probably falls into the next, the CPA programs. I think that within the CPA programs, I think if we target or tell stories about those that are successful in the heavy highway road building industry and target some individuals to share with those that are in these community organizations. So exactly as you said, right? Show the face, tell the story, and people see that success and they can see themselves being that person. And I think, you hit it on the community side as well as high schools that may be in the community, but might be without a little bit more out of the community, and we're hitting both sides of the house.
Yeah, I was going to add, just in that vein that Tracy just said, even outside of of course, the young people that in middle and high school, we want to see that we want them to see that they don't have to go to those do the traditional four-year college route, that you can go into the trades, that you can go, frankly, and make more money than if you went and got a BA at a four-year traditional college and accrue all that student loan debt. But also thinking about, and Josh has reminded us of this, it's not just those young people that we want to get. There's also folks in my, I'm thinking of my district right now that I know are struggling with employment, and why don't they look at this as an avenue that they could explore? So I was thinking, and we were talking about this last week, I'm thinking about social media and Facebook. I know us older, adults tend to use Facebook a little bit more, young people, Instagram, but I'm thinking of really short vids. Remember, they can't be long. Remember somebody showed us an example of a video and it was great, but it was so long. Like, could we make these short little vids with, like, I was thinking, I feel like I'm always giving Josh all these props and I don't mean to, but you know how dynamic he is. And so can you imagine him in a little video talking about his experience and entry into this world and what that would mean to folks in the community to see him? And I was thinking of, I grew up with this guy, Hera, who ended up being a leader in one of the unions. The guys that work on the roofers. He ended up becoming a leader within his union and working for the actual union. And I just think he's such a success story, and he never gets any props, really. I mean, not the way that I do. And I was thinking, what if we highlighted him and Hera could speak in both English and Spanish, and we could do a really short vid for Facebook and Instagram. So we're reaching both the older and the young. But those are just the first things that I'm
Oh, I
thinking about.
love the bilingual aspect of it too. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something we've not talked a lot about with this group, but that is a thing too, right? I mean, we're putting videos together, but are we marketing them to target all of the community groups? So that's a really good point.
No, I agree. Having videos that are in other native language, so Spanish speaking, and also, yeah, no, this is good.
Yes.
Are you still with us, Josh?
So if anybody else had anything there.
Did you leave us, or did you leave us to go? Is the draft on now?
No,
I'm just
no,
checking.
I'm still here.
Leah, that was so funny, and I may have been thinking the same thing. I just didn't say it.
Yeah. Josh
No,
knows
I'm here.
Josh knows I'm just gonna put it out there.
I have not gone anywhere. I am here. All right. Does anybody else have anything to add to this now? I mean, I think we have some really good, at least some good starting points here that can point us in the right direction as we are having these conversations. But I agree, videos, getting folks out. I mean, it's,
And throughout, Christina, are you with us?
we have to put it in folks' face, but we have to.
Christina, are you on the line?
Yes.
John Anderson's trying to get into our session. He's still in the waiting room, he said. Sorry, Josh.
No, it's all good. Tell them today's price is not the same as yesterday's price to get in. It's going to cost them to come over here and hang out with us.
Hey, Josh and Leah, one more thing. One more thing
Yeah.
I wanted to mention. What about earned media with the local press? You know how I don't know if she does it anymore, but remember that one woman used to do the Positively Milwaukee? Yeah, and you know, get them to do some positive stuff around. Like, I remember we had that young man come and tell us about he was working. He's an apprentice. I think he's coming through Big Step, and he talked to us a little bit about, you know, what his experience is. Imagine him getting highlighted, you know, on our local news. Find, you know, a young Black man being highlighted in a positive way, and then we can push that, and then they do the work for us, making that little vid, and then we can just share the news piece on all over social media as well. But I just would love, like, that young man that came to talk to us. That would be great to see his story pushed out further too, and maybe utilizing the local press and telling them to cover these positive stories.
So can I share? Can I just raise my hand and share? Like that is powerful coming from you, Joe. That is powerful coming from the Common Council. That it loses power. Oh, did I lose everybody? Am I frozen?
No, you're still with us. We can hear you. You're
Okay, I
not
just want to make sure you can hear me. So when we look at it, when we look at the power of having that conversation, the media, and I remember this when I was as the state director, like I would try to tell these stories and that, they'll hear them, but when it comes from an elected, that, hey, we have this story that we need to do, it brings it home for folks and they will listen and say, okay, what's it trying to do? And if we can wrap it around a theme of something going on, I mean, so I'm not saying as a group we can't, but I think an elected's voice getting into those stations is much more strong than some of our collective voices. I guess that's what I'm saying. And I would love to be a part of any of that stuff that's being done as well, representing and maybe even, working with some of those folks. Because you're right, the guy that came, he was an apprentice. He was dynamic. He was awesome. And if prepped the right way and shared, that is something that could definitely go out and be shared amongst the wide audience. And I know WisDOT, Leah, this is before you were there. Actually, I shot a video for WisDOT. This is like 4 or 5 years ago that I did a video. I don't ever know what happened to it. That's when Becky Kicker was over there. And I don't know whatever happened. And I'm not saying use it because it's 4 or 5 years ago. So it's relevant, but it's not. But even something like that, even some little short vids, like you said, like the commercial I did for a Wisconsin apprenticeship, 30 seconds long, right? Something really short, really brief, get to the point. But yeah, I agree. I think some of that stuff would be very, very valuable.
If I could jump in on
I think
that
Christina has her
too.
hand. I'm sorry, Christina.
Oh, go ahead, Christina.
Okay, I just had a thought with all of this and just wanted to mention it real quick. I know everybody's seen that Milwaukee is home, all those news things. Putting something like that with all the infrastructure, the new infrastructure growing up, putting it to and seeing if we can get the news to put it as these people in these communities are building their communities. And you can be part of that too, type of message. I just had that come to mind, so I wanted to put that out there.
Well, and here's one thing, Tracy, before I go to you, I want to throw this out. Leah, and this is something maybe we can discuss about too. And I don't want us to get too hung up on here. I know this is a good conversation and topic. But how can WisDOT help rebuild the trust of the community in coming into these jobs, these careers? What role, if any, does WisDOT play in that, in helping to rebuild that trust? Instead of being the state agency, how do we get more to a granular level? And how can even this committee, how can we play a part in helping to rebuild that trust? Because we could put commercials out, we could put conversation out, we could put articles out. But if people look and say, I tried that and it didn't work for me, or, I went here and I didn't end up getting here. So is there something we should be able to do to help build trust within the community? I just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
Yeah, so one thing that I can share that we are doing, that we recently received approval from Federal Highways Administration on. You probably know that in the bipartisan infrastructure law, there is an opportunity for states and local programs to establish geographic preferences on projects. And so I did submit a request to Federal Highways and it was approved last month. And so what we are going to do is look at project opportunities in the city of Milwaukee to determine which projects we would be able to establish some geographic hiring preferences on. We are going to make it voluntary, but we did update some of our milestone incentives and some of our additional service provisions related to the trans program. So we're able to pay some milestone payments for the hiring of and training of individuals from that meet the Milwaukee residency requirement. And then also we included a newer milestone payment to move folks.
So I'm gonna talk to staff and find somebody who's gonna be able to meet.
Christina,
Okay?
Somebody, yeah, Christina, you're not muted.
That I will take care of it. Yep, no problem then.
Maybe somebody can type in the chat and look like she's not muted. So anyway, that I think that's one way. I mean, that's a small step.
It lasts too.
Just so you know, there is a man who filled out.
I'm not able to do
John,
it.
can you mute yourself, John?
Let me see. You know what? Let me try to mute her. I can mute her.
Older and not tech savvy, so
I'm sorry.
he's not eligible.
John, can you mute yourself?
I can't
John
see.
Anderson.
Yeah, I hear you guys.
I just muted Christina.
There we go.
All right.
We're good now.
Okay. So anyway, I think that's a small step that we're taking to establish the geographic preferences on a voluntary basis with those incentive milestone payments. I'm sorry, I just lost the document that I was sharing. I have to go back and reshare that. So here we go. I better save this along the way so I don't lose it. But I think there's other things that we do need to be looking at, Josh, as strategies to build those relationships, as you indicated.
Leah, I just wanted to ask what was the timeline on that?
We actually have selected a project already, and that's going to be let in January of next year. So it's going to be coming around really quickly.
Oh, great. That's
yeah.
great.
I can tell you which. Oh, yeah. I think it's a project off Capitol Drive. I feel like it's Brown Street and Capitol Drive is the one I think we landed on. That's one, and then we're going to identify some additional projects. Let me get back to sharing the document here. Okay. I don't know if that helps, if that answers your question, Josh, or if that's, or if you would consider maybe that as a step. You know, if we can work with the community to train and hire individuals from the community, as what was indicated, and they're helping to build or rebuild their communities. You know, that's one way of, I think, working on establishing a relationship.
Yeah, and I don't see. I love that you brought that up, Leah, and I think that it's something I kind of just wanted to drop out there so we could have that conversation, or just for folks just to even think about it.
Because I think
in
what
that
folks
way.
trying to get away from is a lot of talk, and they want us to, you know, they want to see some action. So I feel like, you know, having us take this big step here on working with our contractors, working with the city of Milwaukee to do that outreach and inform the communities about opportunities and, you know, how to enter the industry and, you know, do as much outreach as we can. Oh, I should share, we did get approval to hire a labor development specialist. Gosh, how did I forget to talk about that? Michael, you're on. You just jump in also, Michael, because sometimes I'll forget things. Are you on Michael? Because I can't see anyone right now because I'm sharing my screen.
I'm here. I just wasn't sure if you had it set up for a certain time during the meeting or when you wanted to, if you had time to share.
Yeah, we can talk about it. I mean, it's public, so I mean, we're moving through the process. So why don't you go ahead and talk about what we're doing and what that position is going to help with, and how it can also help with, you know, with this, you know, opportunities that we're looking at to, you know, set those geographic requirements on a voluntary basis as appropriate.
We've been really fortunate to have a number of workforce development initiatives that we've been starting with Leah's leadership, the TRACK program, the trans program, continuing.
You're going to have to talk about TRACK because people don't know what TRACK is. So I think when you say those things, you have to give folks the background, Michael.
Sure. A training program in high schools to help students and introduce them to bridge and little projects that could eventually spark their development, like STEM programs are involved in the program, are involved as well in developing students. So as we look at these different programs, this position, this labor development specialist can help us guide some of those programs through and potentially even expand some of those programs into the future. The trans program has been active, but with a staffer on it dedicated to it, I think we have other opportunities to be able to support that program as well. And so I've been in the process of getting the position description together. I just received an email during the beginning of this meeting from Human Resources, so it's very close to being posted. And we hope to bring that person on board pretty quickly to support various labor development workforce issues. I think one of the things that we've talked about in the past in this group is the workforce development grant, and they could be potentially helpful with the workforce development grant initiative we received from the Federal Highways Administration, working with South Central Wisconsin and with Employ Milwaukee, supporting our trans programs and other workforce initiatives in those areas. So I think there'll be a lot of opportunity. We're just in the process of recruiting that and moving forward with that initiative.
Yeah, let me back up a little bit and just talk about that highway construction workforce partnership grant that Michael's referring to. And just to get back to the question that you asked, Josh, about, how can WisDOT take much more of a active role in building those relationships really down to the community level to build that trust. We did get that highway construction workforce partnership grant. We are adding some new partners, and that will be Employ Milwaukee. So we'll specifically talk about this region. We did, there's another part of this, the South Central part of the state we're focusing on, but for this discussion, we'll talk about Milwaukee. And so I think, part of, what's required of that grant is for us to create a workforce partner, a working group. And so, we have identified members from the industry. We've reached out to our trans providers and the Workforce Development Board, but we also should be looking at who else should we bring to the table to help us with the outreach, the making those connections and building those relationships. So that grant can also be something that another avenue that we could use to make those connections and work to build that trust. So I think we have a couple things going on that provides us with some really good opportunities in the area that you mentioned, Josh, that we really do need to kind of get moving along here, because it's there's a long history here, and so I recognize that, and so we really need to be thinking about how do we have those important conversations, how do we make those connections, how do we build that trust. And so it's great having you all on this group to have those conversations with us, and some of you will be on that highway construction workforce partnership working group. So
Fantastic. And I know Tracy's had her hand raised for a little bit here. Tracy, if you want to jump in.
Didn't even realize my hand was still up, but thank you. Going back, I just wanted to, if I could go backwards a minute, when we were talking about the videos, and there was some conversation about how to do that. I think we will have to be strategic. We talk about videos and, hey, get this out. If we would really look at the scope of like a year, right? And Josh, I think you mentioned it, like, there's reentry week, there's National Apprenticeship Week, there's Women in Construction Week. We could define our own week. But if we would kind of look at the big dates that get a lot of media. So when we were talking about getting the media in and picking people that we could highlight to do stories on, the leader who's a roofer, finding somebody in the heavy highway and doing this throughout the year regularly, so that it just never goes away. It's not just a one and done. And the timing of it and the regular timing of it is a big deal. We did videos during COVID tied to our new apprentices, because we were having, it's hard to get women or people into heavy highway. I mean, that's a challenge. It's a different industry. It's different than sheet metal and electrical. And so what we did is we targeted a diverse apprentices within the Walbeck group and did like they probably were too long to the point earlier. They were about 2 minutes long, which is apparently to the TikTok and the 12 seconds that we need to really engage people. But what we did is we had these videos and the people were on the jobs. And so let's not forget, as we tell a story, seeing the action and maybe having DOT capture some of these people who might be working on the job so that the people we're recruiting can actually see what that work looks like. And I can send a couple of and I'm not saying our videos are like, rock star videos. It was just something I had our marketing team do so I could continue during COVID to, recruit diverse candidates. But I'll send you a couple of those just so you could see them. Because there's something to be said about the machinery and somebody's team and the excitement that comes with working and building the bridges and the paving across Wisconsin. And that has to be a sell too. So that I wanted to mention that. And then I did type in the chat, whatever you're talking about, this track program is so exciting and wonderful. We're doing a lot of work in the schools trying to get heavy highway into the schools in a different way, separate, or I should say in alignment with STEM, and we've got some good things going on. So whatever you end up doing with that, I would love to help drive it or be involved with that. We're taking our employees in and doing projects and round robins of hands-on with various school districts so that people are seeing apprenticeship as an option. STEM's great, college is great, but there's this missing piece. So I just wanted to mention those few things.
This is great. Thank you, Tracy. And I
Really
did
good.
make note of that on the work plan here.
Perfect. Yeah, and I love the job fair. I love that. Yeah, I think I said this before. As you all know, I don't really mince my words. When we were doing the Bucks job fairs, there was so much misinformation going around. Then I think now we're in a much better place where we can really share the direct information and getting people plugged in. So I think those are great.
Yeah, Josh, you and I had talked about getting you guys to one of my town halls, but now that I've done more town halls, everybody just wants to talk to me about the potholes and the street lights and the, reckless driving. And there's just not the time. I feel like to focus on this. So I just thought, and you want to, talking about building trust, what if we did a WisDOT job fair working with the city? I just feel like Milele, this is something that Milele would want to, because she's all about, let's get folks from our communities, our districts into these jobs. And I was thinking one north side, one south side. What if Milele led the one on the north side? I just think there's possibility, but I don't know where you guys are at on that. But I volunteer to help if you have interest.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds great.
And with the avenue of trans as that avenue now into apprenticeship, that connection to apprenticeship, it's perfect. So, all right. I think we have some really good stuff here, and we could probably talk for days about sharing stories and how important it is. But I definitely want to move on with this so we can start to build our comprehensive plan. So I'm going to move into goal number 2. And goal number 2 is really around improve the support of certified pre-apprenticeship programs. Now, my past experience in Wisconsin with certified pre-apprenticeship programs, there's like almost 40 of them in the state. Half of them, a little under half, are focused on construction. But the 2 biggest ones are obviously, the one biggest, I should say, is Big Step. So up in the Northeast and then down here in the Milwaukee area. And looking at how we could continue to create that pipeline into construction. So we have trans, but then there's other ones as well who are doing construction that we need to connect our employers to so that they can also go find. Obviously, we would love for them to pull from trans grads constantly, but we have to be realistic and think about the fact that we need to provide them with other pipelines as well. So on our website, on the Wisconsin Apprenticeship website, all of the certified pre-apprenticeship programs are on there, and the ones that focus on, it tells you what they focus on. So it's probably easier, Leah, if we just put that the website is there, and then maybe we could pull that information together of who does, and then we can share that information. But yeah, it's all on there, and and what they all focus on is on there.
That sounds good. I can plug that
I
in.
believe.
Yep, I'll plug that in.
W-
Yep, I can put that in there as a strategy. So I'll include the link there. I think that's what you're suggesting, right, Josh?
Yeah. Instead of just going and typing the link and people can look. All right. I can move on to number 2. So identify strategies to support and retain trans participants. This one I think will have some really good. I'm thinking there'll be some good conversation around it. But I want you to think about what strategies do we need to bring to the table that will help support and retain trans participants? And I think one of the keys, at least from my opinion, individuals who go through the trans program, they're not automatically connected to registered apprenticeship. And I believe that is a strategy that we have to make an intentional connection to registered apprenticeship for everyone that's in trans. Now, if they don't end up going into apprenticeship, like Tracy has opportunities with Walbeck, right? They can go out and be I can't even think of the name of it now, but Tracy knows what I'm talking about. They can go out
Quality
and they can
control
work
technician.
there it is, quality control, right? So maybe individuals are able to get connected at least. So if they're not ready for apprenticeship yet, maybe getting out there and getting that exposure with companies entry level, and then creating opportunities for them to grow into a registered apprenticeship. I believe that is a huge strategy that is very underutilized and has been underutilized by trans for many years. And that's as a trans graduate. I just believe it's heavily underutilized. I'm open to any other conversation on it as well. That's just the one I had. Yes, Christina.
Just thinking with the, when we have solicitations or bid lettings, there's DBE goals on there. Construction. Can there be anything put in there to give an incentive for companies to use the trans program? It's use an apprenticeship programs that can say we use this, and that kind of gives them a higher percentage at looking at getting the bid, kind of like having a percentage of DBE percentage usage. Am I making sense there? Like,
Are you suggesting that we give them credit?
yeah, or like a utilization or something, like you set a 5% goal on a project that you have to use DBEs. Can there be a 5% goal set that you have to use companies that use apprentices and are taking advantage of the trans program and all those programs to bring in the workforce?
Yeah, we're not able to do that because there's a state statute that prohibits us from doing that, Christina. That's why we're doing the voluntary incentive through what I got approved through Federal Highways, because Federal Highways has allowed us to do, because they included that in bill, it gives us an opportunity to do it voluntary. We also can't give any bid credits because we're a low bid state. Other states like Michigan can do that, but we're not able to do that.
Yeah, I didn't know. You don't know until you ask.
Oh, no, this is great. I'm glad you asked. Yes.
Didn't know if there, there's a way you could put a goal on it, but the incentive would help too, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're not able to do that. And because of a state statute, I actually spent a lot of time researching this last summer and working with our Office of General Counsel, which is why we landed with submitting a plan to Federal Highways for the voluntary incentive.
Does anybody have anything else on that one, on number 2?
I just would like to add, if I could, I think really there's certain employers that work very closely with the trans program. You have your regular employers, right? I'm sure if you all in your head, you're picking 2 or 3 that you know actively hire and do things. I think as part of the strategy, it would be to educate and engage other employers. I mean, that's how we're going to support and retain the trans participants also, is through those employers. But I think we have to get a bigger involvement. If it's not through an incentive, like was just mentioned, it's just about educating them about the value of hiring and the value of diversity and the value of creating a pipeline of workers. I think there's a big missing piece there. For our company, this is my new hires. I have it set that our new hires are entry-level apprentices. I'll call John, and I have spots saved for graduates of their program all of the time. I get the value. How do we educate other employers to see and use that too? And maybe it's a roundtable with them. Maybe it's a fair with these employers, and not just, I'm not talking networking with the trans participants like what we do. I'm talking on a higher level.
And I guess I would just add, and I think Josh and the rest of the group, we've been talking about this a lot, is the mentorship part. So I just think that we need to make sure that's part of the apprenticeship program. I mean, we can always say
Agreed.
it's apprenticeship, but we really don't mention mentorship, in the apprenticeship. And I think that definitely will attract and retain if they know that there's this program that's going to help, not only just with, on the job type of things, but it could go down to maybe any other type of mentorship, just as far as growing, in the community and so forth. So I just think that we need to make sure that would definitely attract and retain if we continue to have a program that is connected with and is clearly documented in the apprenticeship program.
What about the mentoring pre-apprenticeship? I totally
Yeah,
agree with you. We lose people, right? While we recruit people to get in the road building trans class, we lose them as they're waiting to get an apprenticeship. I think that if we can connect them with people, and that's part of what I think, for example, for Big Step John's group does, but to maybe develop or encourage a stronger support system of those that are in the class, so they are getting hired and then they're mentored throughout, because we're losing. I wonder if the numbers were run, how many people go through training and then disappear? What are we doing to support them as they're getting trained pre-hire so that they're ready, and they have their go-to people with what's going on in their life so that they're not getting lost in the shuffle?
Yeah, and that's, that's what I was going to ask John. Is there something already existing, or maybe is that something that we pitch where as totally separate? Like, I know that WRTP Big Step has a pre-apprenticeship program. I know they have other programs that are built for test prep for, apprenticeship test prep. But do you have something specific, John, there that we could mention that's only on mentoring? So if I'm a laborer apprentice and things are just really hard for me out on the job site, then I could be referred, hey, why don't you contact so-and-so at WRTP Big Step for some mentoring or for some resources? Does that exist? And does it exist to the extent that I would say that it is sustainable for everyone, for folks to get involved? He gave me the church hand. He ain't give me the church finger. He gave me the church hand. You're muted though, John. Oh, you can't talk. Ah, all
See if you
right.
can ask him to type in the
Well, I
chat.
won't call on you anymore then.
Hey, can you ask him to type in the chat if he can?
Yeah, if you could type. Yeah, if you could type in the chat, if it's just brief, John, it's something we can just give us a little bit of yes or a no, and then we can come back to it. We can always look at it as a strategy down the line.
Yeah, I'm
All right,
trying to
we'll let you write it, and then
working.
what does it say? Leah, unmute me. Oh, I think Leah, you muted him.
No, oh, let me go and see if I can. I thought I muted Christina earlier, but let me check here. Let's see here.
Look at the power Leah has behind the screen. I better be careful here.
Ooh, you guys better be nice to Leah.
I'm loving this power. All right, let me see. Oh, well, I don't want to remove him from the meeting. Christina, can you unmute him? Because I can't.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at that because I muted
Yeah.
him before.
Oh, you're the one that muted him because I muted you. I didn't mute him.
I think if I make an attendee, maybe he can.
Okay. Oh, he's unmuted now. You're unmuted now. No, that's not you. That's Josh. Oh, I don't want to mute Josh. All right, I'll stop. Let me go
No,
back.
it's saying, yeah, it's the mute participant is missing.
Yeah, I know. It's missing on mine too.
All right, I'm going to make him a presenter because that's what everybody else is.
John,
okay.
If you just want to throw, if you want to just throw something in the chat, John, yes or no, and then we will revisit it as we go through this, as we go through the document. It's all good.
That is so weird.
And I'll let, all right, so we have it up there. So that's just one thing I thought about. It's really key. It's very important to have mentorship. And this is something I'm looking at a national level, just so you all know, like, I want to create an app for apprentices across the country that have access, like EAP. I want there to be an apprenticeship app that no matter if you're an apprentice in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, I don't know, Alabama or Milwaukee, Wisconsin, ability to call into this app to get support services. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but it's something that I want to push and something I have an idea for creating opportunities so that it is universal across the country. So mentorship is so important and support is so important. All right, we'll move on to the next one. So identify the solutions to challenges and barriers for those interested in careers in the industry. Now, I think this is going to be a heavy hitter right here. So one of the strategies we came up with was obviously learn more about wraparound services available in the community related to. Hey,
Hey, you can hear me now?
yeah, you back, my brother. Good,
Yeah,
welcome back. Welcome
so
back.
thank y'all. For some reason, Teams doesn't like me. I cannot see any of you. I don't have any controls. I can't see mute, video, anything. I have a black screen and I hear your lovely voices. But to answer your question real quickly, so WRTP offers mentoring to apprentices whom come through our programming. We do something very specific with women under WANTU, the women in non-traditional trades and occupations. We work with an Empower Her group. But we don't have anything that's generally open to all apprentices like we put out in the world. We would, I mean, if any apprentice who contacted us, yes, we would offer them mentoring, but I think we only have a connection to those persons whom we've served either through Trans Road Building or the Big Step Apprenticeship Readiness Program. So that means that we as a group would probably want to create our own thing and then fold folks we're working with into that and promote it externally as an option to all apprentices. So I'll be quiet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
I threw it out there because I know that you all have been doing some work, and as we can look for a more concerted effort. So, thank you.
My pleasure. You might have to mute me again, everybody, because I can't do it on my own today. Yeah,
it's all good.
It's been a week.
So I know. Tell me about it. So in that next one, the identify solution. So we learn about wraparound service available community. So childcare, transportation resource. What else are there? What are the other solutions to the challenging barriers for those interested in careers in the industry? We know that access points, and that's actually a challenge, right? Access points are not visible. This kind of goes back up to the one about holding job fairs, career fairs, getting out there, doing some public service announcements, because the access points just truly are not visible for those in the underserved communities. Visible or accessible for those in the underserved communities.
That's still there? Okay, there. I don't hear anything.
If it's appropriate, I would add mentorship under this one as well.
Right? Yes, I would agree. It is very appropriate. And Tracy, I see your comment over there. Very good.
Can't see her comment because I'm sharing, so if there's something that I should include that's in chat, let me know.
It says, as we talk about mentorship, let's not forget about educating the unions about referring their apprentices for resources.
Can we bold number 2? And underline it?
Say that hang on 1 second here.
Oh, well, I was just being a little facetiously.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm gonna bold it.
Uh,
Repeat that again. Educate unions, but
Educate unions about referring their apprentices for resources and help if needed. All right. Oh, you bolded it? All right, we're good. So anybody else have anything there? I think those are a good start. Oh, Christina, you still have your hand raised? Is that a still or did you just raise it?
I just got to unraise it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to miss you.
No, thank you. No, sorry.
All right, so we can move on then to, and I think we had some good stuff here that we filled in. Leah, that we kind of rocked through some of the things. So explore options to provide stipends to trainees while in training and upon successful completion of the program. So we have some good stuff in here. Review how WRTBXW uses stipends and how this can be replicated to support trans participants. Explore what resources are available from the workforce boards and ARPA funds. Racine County is using their ARPA funds to do a 2-year pilot project. To co-enroll trans in WIOA and best practices that contractors are using to support and retain their workforce. I would add number 6 there as well, that once they become apprentices, there is apprenticeship grant money available, $600 to every brand new apprentice. And I believe they ran out of their ASE, but they found more money in the next round that ends next year. So $600 for tools, childcare, transportation, rent, you name it. It's they can use it. The $600, and that's in any industry.
Josh, do you know how they came up with 600 or?
Yeah, actually, I can tell you how Josh came up with 600. Because I'm the one who did it.
No, that 600 is good. Don't get me wrong, but no.
I wanted it to be more. So here's the thing. I wanted it to be more. All right. Where David ain't on here. See, if David was on here, he would understand the method between my madness as he took over my seat. But I wanted it to be more. But the challenge that we faced was the grants that we received are numbers based. So you have to get a certain amount of apprentices, and you can only count an apprentice for USDOL. You can only count them as an apprentice served through your grant if the dollar touches them. So you have to spread the money out enough to make sure you get your 800 participants. And this was just one way. So I wanted it to be 1,000 or 1,500, and I could have easily, but I would not have gotten the numbers that I needed for the grant. So 600, we fell on 600, and I think it ended up being, I want to say it served like 300 people. 300, yeah, because it was like 100 and some thousand, 160, 170. I don't remember exactly how much it was. I earmarked for it, but $600 was, and you go through Employ Milwaukee through Jose Galvan or Jeff Kennedy in South Central, and they covered the whole state. So that's how we fell on that, the 600.
No, it's great no matter what the amount is.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, how you came up with that and
No, it's all good. I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, it was really frustrating because a lot of people from the Milwaukee area did not take advantage of it. It's really sad, actually. The majority of the folks,
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say the majority of folks who tapped into it were from across the state, not Milwaukee. So it was really unfortunate, but it's there. It is there.
And Josh, is there a website or is there a link that I can include here in the document where this information?
Remind me, Leah, and I will get that information and email it to you.
Okay, that sounds good.
I
just
don't
wanted to
know if
put
it's
that-
on the website.
Yeah,
Email me. I
if
don't
we
know
could
what
put
they've
something-
done.
Yeah, if we could put something where there's a reference that we could, where folks can go in and take a look. So that'd be helpful.
And can I just, Tracy, I saw Tracy's question. I think it's to you, Josh. Why didn't people use it? Why do you think Milwaukee folks in particular, they just didn't know
Love it.
about it?
No, they knew about it. It's the follow-up, right? Joe, I'm gonna be honest, our communities, we're absolutely horrible at follow-up. And you have to turn in, and you know this as an elected official. Like the challenge we face is you have to have the receipts, right? You can go out and buy the tools, just keep the receipt or some type of receipt. It can be an automated receipt. And many times they would say, oh, yeah, never mind. And they would just move on. They never come back and get the money. And that's so we tried to empower unions or the committees and said, hey, when they become an apprentice, buy their tools that they need and give them the receipt because they're going to charge them anyways for the tool, right? They're buying them and they're saying, hey, we'll buy these tools and you're going to buy them from us. And I was like, just give it and have the receipt for them because they're going to pay for them anyways. And they would be able to turn it. And they didn't want to do, no support. There was no way to really get people to say, hey, we're going to take the 600 out of your check anyways. Here's the stuff you're going to need. And here you can get reimbursed. Yeah, it was really messed up and it was really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's fascinating how Josh is totally right. I know so many of us in this group know this. I am even bad at saving receipts. It's like, I just don't know what it is, but it's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really it was frustrating to me because I created it for the underserved community. Like $600 is a nice little piece of change.
Well, and Josh, this goes across programs. The program that you were involved with VR, we had the same issues in Milwaukee too with people.
Yes.
Issues. So yeah,
Yes.
I don't know if it's a systems issue and how we kind of don't, but I think there are sometimes we just have to approach things differently and tailor made sometimes our services appropriately for for certain communities and demographics, and we're not always very good at doing that. So it's frustrating and it's sad to see that's a barrier. It doesn't have to be, in my opinion.
And that's where
Yeah.
the mentorship program could come in, where that mentor, works with that individual to make sure that they get the receipts or understand what's needed.
Yeah.
So that just shows it right there. Sometimes they just need that guidance,
Yeah.
that push to do
Yeah.
that.
Very true.
All right. All right, so then we can move on. There was some really good stuff in there that we were able to drop in. So goal 3, improve childcare supports for workers. All right, so I'm going to throw out this wild idea that I've proposed as number 1. We can use that, and it may never ever happen, but I just wanted to be known on the record that I have proposed this and I have talked to folks about this, and I think it's actually a really good idea. The unions have a trust. That trust supports many different things in retirement. It supports apprenticeship training. I've proposed that some unions get together in the industry, not just one particular, but that numerous unions get together in the industry and they either open their own daycare or they provide funding to a daycare that runs 24 hours that is available to their union members to utilize for childcare. Now that's like a super, like, I just took that out the fridge. It ain't out the freezer. It ain't thawed out. I don't know the ingredients that have to go in there, but I think there's something like that where it's totally wrapped around, especially when we think about road construction. Road construction is 24 hours a day, right? I lay concrete in the morning. Tracy's crew comes in and puts asphalt over at nighttime when there's no traffic. And I think we have to really think about how we hold industry responsible for or for solving this barrier, instead of it being, oh, well, we just have to figure it out. No, no, no. Industry has to help figure this one out, and they have to play a part. So like I said, that's straight out the freezer. I pulled it out the freezer. That I don't know other stuff about the work we've done with Empower and the funding. No, and actually, I was just on the phone with Art and Tom from NAB2 2 days ago, and they didn't talk about this, any pilot program that they're doing. But if there is something, I think we definitely want to focus on that and use that as the ability, or as to show industry, and it could be one or two unions come together. I think if you do that, you attract a whole new breed of workers to your industry. If you say, we're going to help with we're not going to pay for childcare, we're going to help you with childcare by providing you childcare, and then we'll take it out of your check. Or it'll be, I mean, there's just so many different ways that they can do it, instead of me having to go try and find a 24-hour childcare provider so I can lay asphalt, or so I can dig dirt or dig ditches.
Josh, I have a question for you. Are there any models out there? Is anyone else doing this in other parts of the country, or even if it's not this industry, in other industries that you can think of?
I always think of Quad Graphics is always the number one that comes to mind. Quad Graphics out here in Sussex, they built a freaking daycare in their building, and their people bring their kids to the daycare while they work a 12-hour shift. And so I always thought about that model of every industry can do that. And I would, the first answer to your question, or the answer to your first question, Lee, is no, I don't know any models in construction across the country that are doing it, but I do know models of manufacturing. I've heard of IT firms doing it, where they've opened up a daycare so that individuals can bring their kids. But the Quad Graphics one is the one that stands out to me the biggest, right? And it's the most relevant here in Wisconsin, is they built an actual daycare in their company that their workers can utilize that daycare for childcare.
Now, Josh,
Tracy, thinks
I love that. And if it's you said it's frozen, we need to thaw it out. So no,
hey,
yeah,
I'm all about it.
thaw it out.
I think it's a great idea. And I think that's how you start to attract young women. You want to attract young women want to work, and they want to work construction. But they're like, I can't work 16 hours a day and take care of my child, rightfully so. So we have to figure out a way to do that. And Tracy says she thinks Pittsburgh has a model. Definitely, if you find that, Tracy, or I can even reach out to Rob, Cherry, or Earl out there and see if they heard about anything.
Josh, you need to pitch that to, do you know Dan Bukevich from the building trades? He's what?
I know Dan.
Okay.
No, I know Dan. I do. I know him, but
every time I see him, Joe Castro, you got to come by. I need you to help me get more diversity. I want more Latinos. Da, da, da. And so we keep talking. Yes, I'm going to meet with you, Dan. But this is what he needs to hear. You want more diversity. You want more Black and brown folks to come and join the union. You got to look at this. You got to think outside the box.
Well, you know, and the other thing too, how can you,
I
I
agree.
mean, what an you know, again, thinking outside the box, and we have such labor issues right now across all industries. And, you know, you often hear, you know, you know, some of the max exodus of the workforce folks have had to make some difficult decisions related to childcare supports. And you know, how they go about doing that. So I'm wondering, you know, I know that you didn't, these aren't your words, Josh, but you know, present this as a wild idea here, but it may not be so wild or out there under the circumstances we're all living under right now. I mean, this
It
is
looks
a
like
big,
Tracy.
this is a big issue for many workers. And the cost of childcare is also going up too. I mean, I just heard something on the news the other day, you know, where, you know, for many families, it's a, you know, it's 20% of their income.
And with all
Yeah.
this built infrastructure money that's coming available, you know, for a variety of different things, just not for infrastructure, but for programs, it would be just amazing to have a pilot, you know, a pilot company or contractor to see if this would help and sustain. So, I mean, and then once you have somebody, have a company that's doing well, you know, with the labor, everybody's going to jump aboard and say, hey, you know, this is the way to go.
I agree. And it looks like Tracy is saying that Dan is working on this. So maybe there's something in the works that we need to find out and tap into, see what they're doing.
Yeah, and Josh, if you can talk with Rob Cherry to see what might be happening out in Pittsburgh, I think that would be also good.
Can do. Yeah, and Kyla. Oh yeah, Kyla. Oh yeah. So if Kyla was involved, yeah. So yeah, let's so maybe there's something that exists we can find out. So maybe somebody did listen to me when I said it when I was a director. Maybe, or maybe they thought of it themselves. You know, who knows? There were a group. There were a few groups that I pitched it to. So, all right. So, is there anything else? All right. So that's just one, right? That's just one idea. Retention of non-industry come together, identify solutions. Okay. Oh, you actually, I see what you did there. Thank you, Leah. Are there any other goals under there, under that for childcare or any other support, or are we good with this and we can really stretch this out a little bit more?
I think this is good.
So Christina, I noticed that do we have a minute left here before we have to go back to the full
Oh,
group?
wow. Oh, gee.
I just said that as you said that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I know, we're doing great work here.
And I put a link in the chat to a daycare thing, US 24-hour daycares.
That's great.
All right, I guess I will be closing the groups in just a minute.
Josh, you want me to send this to you, or are you good with giving the summary?
Yeah, if you want to send it over quick, I'll just hit a couple high points
Yep,
because
I'll
I'm going
send
to.
it over to you right now. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, and this is good. Thank you, Tracy, for sharing that Dan is working on it. That was fantastic. And yeah, Joe, I think anything we can take into Dan and any of the other groups that are trying to be intentional, anything we can do, I'm all in. If you ever need my support, you definitely can count me in those conversations. So I think
Thank you.
there's
Tracy,
some,
too.
yeah, I mean, there's some great support, and we have to think outside the box. Good stuff. Well, Joe, we really appreciated your service with us on this committee.
I'm gonna miss you guys. It pains me to leave you. Maybe I can come back after we get 2 or 3 new members in and we're back up.
Please.
I think that's definitely key. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to talk to Cavalier himself and say, hey, man, I need you to just make sure she stays.
Okay, all right. So why don't we go ahead and have each subcommittee report back? your discussion. So we'll go ahead and start with the business subcommittee.
Okay, so I'll kick it off and then let Madalena or others from the committee just jump in there. So today we focused on the two remaining goals. And one goal was to enhance contract and DBE relationships to increase DBE utilization. And so we talked about, how can we improve that communication between DBEs and primes? And what type of procedures could we have? What types of problems are they experiencing? One thing that we spent a whole lot of time on was that, some DBE says that primes are using them or using their bid, on a project, but they don't know about it, right? And then we had long conversations to talk about how we can get around that. In that same vein, we talked about, are there enough social actions between DBEs and primes that primes feel like they know DBEs well enough that they'd be comfortable? Should we be doing more pre-bid meetings? Should we be doing more speed networking? The other topic we talked about was identifying dedicated resources for DBEs so that they can develop, but looking at it from two dimensions. One dimension would be, should we create specific resources for DBE consultants? And second, should we create specific resources for DBE contractors? And so there was lots of ideas generated, around those ideas, around those as well. And then at the end of the conversation, Madalena talked about, many of the community programs that exist, and maybe there's opportunities to partner with nonprofits to talk about helping DBEs with training for business services and those sorts of things. So, Madalena, I went quick and fast, but maybe you can do the color commentating now.
Yeah, great. Thanks. I appreciate your ability to be succinct and hone right in there. We had a lot of great suggestions from our DBEs on the call and also from Lamont's experience working with Milwaukee County and some of the different measures they've put into place. One thing that I really will follow up with you on, Lamont, relates to how you're looking at the supplemental insurance program that may be able to be supported through the county. And depending on what you find out about that, to see if that could be a resource, because what they're recognizing is that DBEs may be at an disadvantage in not being able to cover insurance requirements that would allow them to take on more work. And so that could certainly be applicable with us. And so then really also focusing on more networking opportunities, which we have some in the works, but also we'll look more to our primes, consultants, and contractors to create more of those opportunities as well that we can partner on with them, and also more opportunities such as the DBE roundtable that was just hosted at CBG's conference, and the importance of the kind of relationships that can be developed by DBEs working with DBEs, and also with new DBEs coming in, DBE hopefuls also helping them to learn the ropes through working with their peers. Thank you.
So Leah, I just want to thank Christina Crane for the great notes. So thank you. You do a wonderful job each time.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the updates. Joshua Johnson, who is the chair of the Labor Advisory Committee subcommittee, will give a summary of the discussion with the labor group.
Yeah, so we had a real passionate discussion as always with my group over there, and the clock always runs out on us for some reason. I haven't figured that one out yet, that we never have enough time to get all of our thoughts down, but we're feeling very confident about the work that we're doing as we're pulling together our focus areas for 2022. We were hoping to have all of them done today, but it looks like that by the next meeting we will have them done. We got to number 4, but we talked about some real key issues here as we talk about, or we finished off on improving work culture I'm sorry, Leah. I will scroll down. Now, here we go. We talked about work culture last time. We talked about basics of construction, some of the things, how to help employers retain apprentices, diverse workers in the market. And now we're moving on to getting into some of the meat of it. And we looked at collecting and sharing stories. As we know, collecting and sharing stories is very important, especially in our community. We understand that the importance of people hearing it that look just like them, and also people sharing it that look like them, and encouraging them to get involved with road building or construction in general. We talked about the certified pre-apprenticeship programs that exist. Wisconsin has about 40 of them, and a little under half are supported for construction. Talked about some solution challenge to barriers. One thing that we brought up that we found out as we were wrapping up is a model that is potentially being piloted in the Milwaukee area for childcare, with industry coming together and creating our childcare or addressing the childcare issue in construction. So we have one goal left, and that is to increase opportunities for workers interested in acquiring knowledge on how to become an entrepreneur certified DBE firm. And it sounds like Dr. Anthony, you all have been talking about that, something very similar in your group. So by the next meeting, I promise we will have something to share about that. Lastly, I wanted to say, as I found out it was public, our fantastic alder, Jocasta Zamparia, Zamaripa, I'm sorry. This was her last meeting with our subcommittee, as she has been moved with the nomination of Cavalier Johnson as mayor. Obviously, to open a common council president seat, which shifted some other stuff around, and Alderwoman Zamparipa is just she's going to be stretched thin. And I know I'm taking your words from you there, Alderwoman, but she's been such a value to our committee. And I will tell you, one of the most important things, and this is coming out of state government and now working at a national level, when you get folks involved who are electeds, people start to listen. More importantly, the constituents listen. And when we think about this, we all think these great opportunities that we have, but many times it's us talking as professionals and living in that community. But it's really those respected alders, such as Alderwoman Zamaripa, that people start to listen. So it was truly an honor to serve with her on this committee, to have her words. And I'm looking forward to the great work she will continue doing in Milwaukee. And I always say I met with her prior to leaving the state director role, and she's never changed her course. Her first conversation to me was, how do we get people from our community working on these jobs? And that was the first sentence she said to me when we first met. And moving forward, that's what we will continue to be focused on, is how do we get individuals on these highway projects, on these construction jobs, that are from the community and not from West Bend, from way up north somewhere. How do we get our folks on these jobs? So with that spirit, we will also be working on to continue to figure that out in our subcommittee. But I wanted to say thank you, Alderwoman Zamaripa. We really appreciate the work you did with us, and look forward to working with you in the future.
And Alder Zamaripa, we want to provide you with an opportunity to share any words that you'd like to share with the large group. You did have an opportunity to talk with us in our subcommittee, but I want to open it up to you.
Thank you so much, Leah and Josh. Thank you for those beautiful words. I'm hoping I'll come back. We just got to get more staffed up, if you will. And I hope I'm not freezing up. I think my camera's a little bit off today. But I wanted to let you guys know, with Mayor Cavalier Johnson going into the executive branch, Alderman Jose Perez is now the president, and he did name some new committee chairs. So I've picked up, I'm now a chair of Public Safety and Public Health Committee, and also picking up some extra committee assignments. So because of that, I'm trying to step back from a couple of things, and unfortunately, this is one of them. But I was just telling Leah and Josh and the rest of the folks in the subcommittee, perhaps I can come back after we get a couple more new members of the Common Council elected. But I did want to take the opportunity to thank in particular Bob Gutierrez, who's the one who recruited me for this committee. And he had a feeling that I would do a good job on this committee. And I think he's right. Very passionate about everything you guys talk about every time we convene. I still don't know the acronyms. I still think I could be much more knowledgeable, but I think I have the same passion that you guys do in making sure that we have a diverse workforce here in our communities. So I hope I can be back. Thank you so much. Leah, you run a tight ship. Thank you for that. And I know we're going to stay in touch, and let me know about those job fairs we talked to in the subcommittee. I would love to be helpful with that. And I have a feeling I got some alders on the Common Council that would like to join in on that as well.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you. We will definitely reach out to you. And as I shared with the subcommittee, Elder Zamaripa, you have been an invaluable resource to our discussions. You've really pushed us to think outside the box. Your all the ideas that you've shared with our group that's led to, us putting together a really solid work plan is just valuable. I appreciate all the time that you took. You rarely missed any of our meetings. You were there, and I know how busy you are. So again, we are so grateful for the time that you took and just really working with us and having us really think about how do we approach labor, especially under today's environment, and in a unique way, and how do we outreach to underserved communities. So again, thank you for your service to our group, and you will be missed, and please let us know when you are able to return. We will welcome you back.
Definitely. Thank you again.
Yes, thank you. All righty. So we have a couple minutes left here. I just want to remind everyone that we will be transitioning our committee meetings to every other month. So our next meeting will be in June. Christina will actually update the meeting invitation. So you'll see that. So please take a look at that so that it can get corrected or changed on your calendar. And we appreciate everyone again dedicating your time and sharing your ideas with us. I think again we continue to do great work as a committee, and we look forward to continuing to finalize our work plan so we can start putting some of these strategies into action. And before we leave, I just want to give Scott Lowry an opportunity to share any closing words that he'd like with the group before we end.
I don't have much, Leah. It's just both groups, I can tell, are very passionate and energetic on these topics, and continue being the great ideas, because we are, we continue want to try to make change where change is possible. So again, just echo everything what everybody's saying. This is both groups are great to work with. So that's all I have, Leah.
All right. Well, thank you all, and we look forward to seeing everybody in June. Take care. Bye-bye.